Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Revealing a glimpse of blood staining the sleeve. Karen's sharp eyes caught Byakuya's injured arm. She hurried over, her voice laced with worry. Lord Byakuya, that looks painful. Would you like me to use my healing blood on it? As she spoke, Karen retrieved a small vial filled with her crimson liquid, a potent substitute for medical ninjutsu. Byakuya, however, shook his head. Don't worry, Karen. It's just a Shinra Tensei injury. The repulsion is forceful, but it's nothing serious. It will heal in a few hours. While Byakuya's words held truth, he could handle the wound. There was more to his refusal. He, too, possessed the Uzumaki clan's remarkable regenerative abilities. Unlike ordinary ninja, even severe punctures mended within days. But most importantly, Byakuya saw an opportunity. He wanted to showcase this extraordinary power. To his satisfaction, both Karen and Nagato had noticed his injury. They watched, a hint of awe in their eyes, as the wound visibly knitted itself back together, returning to its flawless state. Karen, understanding his unspoken message, made no further attempts to intervene. She remained with Nagato, her gaze lingering on Byakuya's retreating figure. Memories flickered in their minds, Byakuya's daring attack on Hidden Grass Village to rescue Karen, his frustration with Nagato's reluctance to train with the Rinnegan, and his resolute departure after their discussion. Now, these fragments clicked into place. Suddenly, the pieces fit. If Byakuya, like them, was an orphan of the Uzumaki clan, everything made sense. His warmth towards them, his eagerness to hone their skills, it all stemmed from a shared lineage. He was determined to prevent another tragedy like Hidnedi Village's destruction. A thoughtful silence descended upon them. Finally, Karen spoke. Nagato-senpai, Lord Byakuya's wound healed so quickly. That's the Uzumaki clan trait, isn't it? Do you know of any other clans with similar abilities? Nagato shook his head, then paused, a flicker of recollection crossing his features. But wait, Byakuya's sensory perception rivals mine, yet he lacks our red hair. Maybe he just didn't inherit that specific trait. Karen, her brow furrowed, ventured. Nagato offered a curt nod, seemingly accepting her explanation. Still, a question lingered. Why would Byakuya conceal his Uzumaki heritage? Was there some unknown reason behind it? Perhaps Byakuya himself wasn't aware of his Uzumaki lineage. Maybe his inexplicable connection to them stemmed from an unconscious kinship, a primal pull towards his shared bloodline. Chapter 25, confirming the reward and punishment system. Nagato and Karen were stormed with the question, could Byakuya himself be oblivious to the Uzumaki blood that pulsed beneath his skin? It seemed the only explanation for the shrouded lineage that gnawed at them. I'm going to tell Lord Byakuya, Karen declared, a fierce determination replacing the tremor in her voice. He has the right to know. He might be a descendant of the Uzumaki clan, kin to us. Before Karen could dash after Byakuya, Nagato's voice snagged her attention. Karen, do you truly believe Byakuya will simply accept this revelation? He is already on edge. We need to choose a more opportune moment, a time when he's receptive. But when will that moment arrive? Karen pressed, frustration evident in the furrow of her brow. Nagato hesitated, unable to offer a definitive answer. Let's wait for now. Nagato sighed, recalling his memories, his arrival in Rain Country as a child and his mother's hushed stories about the land of Uzumaki. A powerful ninja clan, they had established a nation, only to be brought to its knees by a coalition of opposing forces. He hadn't even laid eyes on the ruins of the land of whirlpools in the aftermath. Yet, Byakuya's words struck a chord. Akatsuki desperately needed strength, a shield against the ever-present threat from the outside world. The Uzumakis were a stark reminder of that very need, a mighty clan brought low by a lack of sufficient power. If their true identities were exposed, could Akatsuki suffer a similar downfall? Perhaps a new thought bloomed in Nagato's mind. It was time to truly delve into the power of the Rinnegan. He needed to unlock its full potential, not just for himself but also for the sake of Akatsuki's survival. When Nagato and Karen were contemplating, Byakuya had already arrived at the Akatsuki office. Pushing open the door, Yahiko moved his eyes away from the official documents and half-jokingly said, "Byakuya, you are finally here. Almost the entire base knows about the noise you made at the training ground just now." Byakuya was not surprised that Yahiko knew about his training at the ground. If he couldn't manage even this level of control, it would be better for Nagato to take Yahiko's position in the Akatsuki organization. Byakuya was more curious about what Yahiko wanted to discuss, so he asked, "Yahiko, did you ask me to come here for this? If you're worried about the base's safety, Nagato and I can find another place to spar next time." "You are sparring with Nagato?" Yahiko's interest was piqued. "How did it go?" "When Nagato-senpai doesn't use the Rinnegan, I have the upper hand. When he uses the Rinnegan, we are currently evenly matched." "We are of the same strength?" Yahiko was slightly stunned and then sighed. "Byakuya, your strength has shown a remarkable increase recently. Were you deliberately concealing your true abilities before?" Byakuya conceded with a curt nod. "There's truth to that. However, I must confess to being rather disappointed with Nagato-senpai's current level of strength." Seizing the opportunity presented by Yahiko's concern, Byakuya hoped to use it to advance his agenda. If he could convince Yahiko, influencing Nagato would be a smoother transition. "Why is that?" Yahiko tapped his fingers on the table. Yahiko knew that Byakuya had learned Conan's paper escape and often instigated Nagato to use the Rinnegan. He trusted Byakuya but sometimes wondered if Byakuya's sense of crisis was too serious. More than a year had passed since the organization's establishment, and apart from financial issues, the organization had never faced a military crisis. In the end, the Akatsuki organization was just a small group active in some parts of the Rain country. It didn't even have the qualifications to establish a small ninja village independently and wasn't worth the attention of the major players in the ninja world. The Rinnegan. If Nagato-senpai didn't have the Rinnegan, I wouldn't expect much from him. But since he has the Rinnegan, he must possess the strength to match its owner, otherwise, he will become a target. Nagato-senpai is powerful now but cannot resist when he meets a real strong man. A man is innocent but guilty of possessing a treasure. This is what Byakuya wanted to express to Yahiko. Yahiko fell into contemplation, his mind replaying the scene from years ago, before they met Jiraiya as their teacher. A relentless downpour lashed the ground as he, Conan, and Nagato, desperate for guidance, stood before the legendary Sannin. A cold glint flickered in Orochimaru's eyes as he advocated for their elimination. Thankfully, Jiraiya, their eventual savior, stepped forward and offered them a chance to learn under his wing. A shiver ran down Yahiko's spine when he recalled that memory. The chilling thought of Orochimaru discovering Nagato's Rinnegan back then sent a jolt of fear through him. Their lives could have taken a nightmarish turn, perhaps ending abruptly right there. While they had undoubtedly honed their skills to Jonin level, a nagging insecurity stormed at him. The immense power wielded by the Sannin still felt like an insurmountable obstacle. Perhaps Byakuya wasn't entirely off base. Maybe the comfort and relative peace of recent years had lulled them into a false sense of security, eroding their edge. "Byakuya, I apologize for taking up your time. I'll speak to Nagato," emphasizing the importance of controlled development to avoid harming himself while harnessing the Rinnegan's power. Taking a deep breath to steady himself, Yahiko spoke with a hint of regret. Byakuya offered a curt nod, a flicker of satisfaction crossing his features. Yahiko's agreement paved the way for him to directly influence Nagato. "However, before you leave, there's another matter that requires your expertise." Yahiko interjected, a new thought striking him. "What can I do for you?" Byakuya inquired, his voice laced with a hint of forced courtesy. "I've been working on a reward and punishment system for the organization, drawing inspiration from Hidden Leaf Village's model." Yahiko explained, retrieving a document from his drawer. "I'd appreciate your insights on it." Byakuya took the document, his expression unreadable as he skimmed through it. "It seems all right at first glance. No specific feedback. I've revised this thing countless times, but some sections still feel unbalanced. I can't quite pinpoint the problem. I have no doubt, Byakuya, that you could craft an impeccable system with your expertise." Yahiko's disappointment was clear. Byakuya felt a bead of sweat roll down his temple. The pressure was unexpectedly intense, far more nerve-wracking than facing the leader of Hidden Grass Village itself. Back in his previous life, he was a diligent worker, not a strategic mastermind. While he possessed theoretical knowledge of reward and punishment structures, he lacked the practical experience to translate it into a real-world system for Akatsuki. After Yahiko confessed his anxieties about the reward and punishment system, a lengthy silence descended upon the Akatsuki office. Byakuya, his brow furrowed in concentration, finally lifted his head. His expression was solemn as he spoke. "Yahiko, On the surface, your plan appears sound. A well-defined system of rewards and punishments is essential for any organization, and borrowing from established models like Hidden Lee villages is a logical starting point. A glint of hope ignited in Yahiko's eyes. Byakuya's acknowledgement of the plan's merits was a welcome change from the non-committal response he'd initially received. Byakuya continued, his tone turning more pointed. However, the true test lies in implementation. No matter how meticulously crafted, theoretical frameworks can often reveal unforeseen shortcomings when put into practice. Here's what I propose: why not introduce this as a trial version for a set period? Yahiko leaned forward, his interest piqued by Byakuya's suggestion. A trial version? You mean? Exactly. Run the system for a few weeks, observe its effectiveness, and identify any areas requiring adjustments. Remember, Yahiko, true problem-solving hinges on seeking truth from facts. Only through real-world application can we identify and rectify flaws in the system. Byakuya confirmed with a nod. Yahiko repeated the last part of Byakuya's sentence under his breath, a genuine smile spreading across his face. Seeking truth from facts. He murmured, the weight of Byakuya's words settling in. Byakuya, you've made a valuable point. Just for this insight alone, your presence here today has been invaluable. Relief and a newfound sense of direction washed over Yahiko. He now had a clear path forward, a trial period to test the system and gather data before permanent implementation. Chapter 26, a lecture about the economy I understand. I'll follow your instructions, Byakuya. I'll announce this reward and punishment system at the meeting tomorrow. Yahiko replied, his voice firm. Byakuya offered a curt nod, acknowledging Yahiko's agreement. Then, he added, as if a forgotten detail surfaced in his mind. Oh, by the way. I won't be attending tomorrow's organizational meeting. I'm eager to see how you handle it. Yahiko's brow furrowed in confusion. Why? After all, you're the one who proposed the reward and punishment system. Byakuya's reluctance to attend the meeting baffled Yahiko. In his perspective, it was a golden opportunity for Byakuya to assert his leadership and potentially soften his harsh reputation among the organization's members. Byakuya began, his gaze steady. Yahiko, every organization needs someone to handle the unpleasant tasks. If you're not interested, it falls to me. On the other hand, you are far better suited to promoting mutual understanding at the meeting. Arguing with you there would be unproductive at that time. So my absence would be better for us not going into arguing at the meeting. Yahiko paused, momentarily speechless. A wry smile tugged at his lips as he conceded defeat in his attempt to persuade Byakuya. Despite being comrades within the same organization, capable of engaging in serious discussions for the betterment of Akatsuki, their fundamental beliefs diverged sharply when it came to conflict resolution. Yahiko championed peace through mutual understanding, viewing force as a last resort. He tirelessly pursued peaceful solutions whenever possible. Byakuya, however, appeared to hold a stronger conviction in the power of force, seemingly dismissing the notion of mutual understanding. When faced with adversaries, Yahiko would seek to subdue them, while Byakuya's approach was swift and final, elimination. This fundamental difference was the greatest point of contention between them. The thought sparked a memory within Yahiko, one that had simmered in his mind for quite some time. After Nagato's refusal of the leadership position and Byakuya's subsequent display of the strength befitting a leader, Yahiko had entertained the notion of entrusting the leadership to Byakuya. However, Byakuya's current stance caused him to hesitate once again. There was no guarantee that Byakuya, as leader, wouldn't steer Akatsuki down a perilous path. Byakuya undoubtedly noticed Yahiko's internal struggle reflected in his conflicted expression. He opted for silence, simply offering a brief farewell before departing from the office. Byakuya possessed a keen intuition, and he likely had a good grasp of Yahiko's contemplation regarding the leadership position. Byakuya understood the urgency of addressing the leadership issue. While Yahiko's temperament and leadership style made him the ideal candidate for Akatsuki's current state, Byakuya craved a different role. He yearned for a position of influence, a powerful advisor who could steer the organization's direction without getting bogged down in the minutiae of daily management. Yahiko's benevolent leadership had undeniably been the glue that held the Akatsuki together. It was this very cohesion that Byakuya, with his focus on raw power, might inadvertently dismantle if thrust into the leadership role. As Byakuya strode through the Akatsuki base, a subtle shift in the atmosphere was palpable. The ninjas he passed no longer treated him with mere respect, there was a newfound reverence in their gazes. His display of strength against Nagato had undeniably elevated his standing within the organization. It was a curious side effect: wherever he went, he commanded attention. This newfound respect, however, wasn't his primary motivation. Before making his way to the training grounds to hone his own formidable skills, Byakuya remembered his promise to Nagato. He remembered the blue-haired girl was up to something, Nagato had confided his anxieties about Conan's recent behavior. Upon discovering the lucrative market for detonating tags, Conan had become a virtual recluse, relentlessly churning out tags within the confines of her room. Her only forays out were clandestine trips to the black market to sell her wares. While Conan's dedication to the Akatsuki's coffers was commendable, Nagato worried about the toll it was taking on her physical and mental well-being. Could her body withstand the relentless production of these potentially volatile tools? Reaching Conan's door, Byakuya found it locked and windows sealed, starkly contrasting the usual open atmosphere. A sign reading "No entry, authorized personnel only" hung forebodingly. It was clear Conan had retreated not just from Nagato's concerns but from any outside interaction. No wonder Nagato was so distressed. A gentle knock on the door elicited a weary voice from within. "Who is it?" "It's me. Your friendly, deadly neighborhood 12-years-old murderer, Byakuya." Byakuya replied with a chuckle. Moments later, the door creaked open, revealing Conan. Dressed in comfortable clothes, she rubbed at the dark circles etched beneath her eyes. "Byakuya? I was expecting Nagato or Yahiko. Did you develop a new paper escape technique this time?" she inquired, a hint of hope momentarily replacing the weariness in her voice. Byakuya hesitated for a moment, his gaze bypassing her to take in the room's contents. The sight that greeted him sent a jolt of apprehension through him. The room was overflowing with detonating talismans, stacked precariously like a papery monument reaching towards the ceiling. Thousands of them lay scattered carelessly across the floor. The sheer volume of these explosive devices was staggering. Even with his mastery of the paper escape technique, a single accidental spark could trigger a devastating chain reaction. Conan's unwavering dedication had taken a surprisingly dangerous turn. After taking in the staggering volume of detonating talismans, Byakuya turned his gaze to Conan. "Nagato-senpai sent me. He's worried about you overworking yourself with these talismans. He wants you to prioritize rest." Conan offered a tired nod. "That sounds like Nagato all right." A wary sigh escaped her lips. "I understand his concern, but our organization's finances have always been tight. Without the income from detonating talismans, maintaining Akatsuki's operations would become a struggle. I just want to contribute more financially." "Byakuya, honestly, do you think resting is truly necessary right now?" Byakuya considered her question before shaking his head. He then launched into an explanation of basic market principles. "Your well-being is paramount, Conan-senpai. While I won't pressure you excessively, it's important to understand that as the supply of detonating talismans increases, their market value inevitably declines. All this tireless effort might not translate to a significant financial gain." Conan remained silent for a few seconds. Nagato's pleas for rest would have likely fallen on deaf ears, but she couldn't ignore the recent shift in the market. The black market merchants had started requesting discounts with increasing frequency. This realization fueled her relentless production, a desperate attempt to compensate for the dropping prices through sheer volume. "Is there a solution to this predicament?" Breaking the contemplative silence, Conan finally posed the question. "Yup. There is. We can proactively instigate a war. This would inflate demand, allowing us to raise prices and ultimately generate more income in selling our precious detonating talismans." The idea held a certain appeal, yet a wave of unease surfaced over Conan. Selling detonating talismans already pushed the boundaries of their moral code. Initiating a war blatantly contradicted Yahiko's core philosophy of peace. Additionally, the very notion of such violence stirred an internal conflict within her. Byakuya, discerning her disapproval from her expression, pressed on. "Another option exists. We could reduce production. Retain a stockpile for our own use, alleviating the strain on your body." "Reduce production?" Conan echoed, a flicker of understanding crossing her features. It seemed listening to Byakuya's financial advice was sufficient for now, without delving further into the complexities of his other suggestion. Taking note of her receptiveness, Byakuya seized the opportunity to delve into economic principles. Though bewilderment clouded Conan's face, she persevered, offering occasional nods to acknowledge her confusion. Finally, as Byakuya took his leave, she watched him depart with a hint of admiration in her eyes. Exiting the room, Byakuya stroked his chin, a satisfied smirk playing on his lips. While persuading Conan to cut back on detonating talisman production by explaining supply and demand felt like a necessary evil, it ultimately achieved his goal of fulfilling his promise to Nagato. For now, the Akatsuki organization seems to be on a path of stability and progress. Yahiko continued to manage internal affairs, Conan oversaw the finances, and Byakuya, alongside Nagato, bolstered their military strength. Everything seemed to be falling into place. Chapter 27, New Lave Technique. A few days later, the Akatsuki meeting convened, and the highly anticipated contribution system was swiftly implemented. News of the program spread like wildfire amongst the members. The prospect of exchanging their contributions for ninjutsu, especially powerful techniques like B-level and even A-level jutsu, sparked a wave of excitement. While their initial motivation for joining Akatsuki stemmed from shared ideals, most were formerly wandering ninja within the war-torn land of Rain. Access to powerful jutsu had been a distant dream. The contribution system offered a tangible reward for their efforts, starkly contrasting the meager opportunities they found before joining the organization. The variety of ninjutsu in the exchange catalog was particularly astounding. It included high-level jutsu, B-level and even A-level jutsu, typically considered family heirlooms, rarely accessible even to seasoned jonin. The fact that the Akatsuki leadership was willing to share such powerful jutsu, with seemingly modest contribution requirements, fueled a sense of disbelief amongst the members. Questions swirled in their minds. Where did the leaders procure such a vast and diverse collection of ninjutsu? Were they backed by a hidden ninja village, or perhaps plunderers of an extinct clan's treasure trove? Driven by curiosity and a touch of suspicion, several members returning from missions made a joint visit to Yahiko's office. A polite "please come in" greeted them from behind the door as Yahiko acknowledged the knock. The Akatsuki members approached cautiously. Lord Yahiko. We're here to exchange some ninjutsu. Yahiko, momentarily looking up from his work, responded with a warm smile. I have your mission logs right here. Let me know which jutsu you'd like to exchange. He then extended the ninjutsu catalog towards them. The members delved into the catalog, their eyes scanning the listings. Finally, they settled on 2 C-level jutsu and 1 tempting B-level technique. Their current contribution level wasn't enough to afford the coveted A-level ninjutsu. Yahiko offered a slight nod before ushering the group into a nearby, concealed chamber. Inside, he retrieved the corresponding jutsu scrolls. Here are the techniques you've chosen. Yahiko explained, his tone serious and authoritative. Remember, these jutsu are strictly for Akatsuki members only. Once you've mastered them, you must return the scrolls. The weight of these conditions, coupled with the sheer power now at their fingertips, left the group feeling slightly lightheaded as they exited Yahiko's office, clutching their prizes tightly. Back in the Hidden Rain village, access to jutsu was tightly controlled, a constant source of frustration. Even seasoned chunin with over a decade of service struggled to acquire advanced techniques. Lord Yahiko, where exactly did this vast collection of ninjutsu in the organization come from? The Akatsuki member couldn't help blurting out a question before leaving Yahiko's office. The moment the question left his lips, he felt a little regretful and troubled. Certain inquiries were best left unasked. Yahiko, however, merely offered a gentle smile. These jutsu were acquired by Byakuya. He also proposed the contribution system. If you feel the need to express gratitude, direct it towards him. He patted the member's shoulder reassuringly and said, Byakuya brought them back? The Akatsuki members exchanged surprised glances, a wave of realization washing over them. Byakuya's name held a certain weight within the organization, conjuring memories of his vocal opposition to Yahiko at the meeting and the earth-shattering display of power during their sparring session just a few days ago. His name was synonymous with strength, a force that often caused Yahiko headaches. Yet, here he was, not only securing a vast repository of jutsu but also advocating for its widespread sharing with fellow members. This revelation struck a chord of astonishment within them. Byakuya being the source of these jutsu and a proponent of the contribution system is a complete surprise, but I heard there's significant tension between Chief Yahiko and Byakuya. Byakuya didn't even attend the meeting, did he? That's what I heard too. Maybe there's more to the story. We know both Yahiko and Byakuya share a vision for Akatsuki's growth, but they have fundamental disagreements on certain matters. Perhaps this explains their dynamic. Theories and speculations swirled amongst the group as they walked back. Upon returning to their quarters, they wasted no time in delving into the practice of their newly acquired jutsu. As successful execution followed successful execution, news of the contribution system's authenticity spread like wildfire. More and more ninjas took advantage of the program, exchanging jutsu and becoming increasingly aware of Byakuya's pivotal role in its implementation. As Byakuya strolled down the Akatsuki base's path, whispers followed him like a constant murmur. Isn't that Lord Byakuya? I heard he single-handedly procured all the ninjutsu in the organization. He's so young, yet capable of mastering S-level jutsu. Appearances can be deceiving, truly. Maybe Lord Byakuya's age is a facade. Perhaps he uses some transformation jutsu to disguise it. How else could he possess such power? Byakuya remained unfazed by the chatter. His true concern lay in their reactions to the newly acquired ninjutsu. Since the contribution system's launch, the system prompts within his mind had become noticeably more frequent. While most offered fragments of basic escape techniques and chakra control, occasional surprises emerged. A notification materialized in his mind. Kato learn the water style, water rush wave technique. You obtain the water style basic fragment. Sato learn the earth style, heart beheading technique. You obtain the earth style basic fragment. Finally, a more substantial reward appeared. Jonan Kyujuk joined the Akatsuki organization. You obtain the lava style, quicklime congealing technique. Byakuya swiftly accessed the system panel, his gaze scanning the reward section. The news of Jonan Kyujuk's enlistment immediately caught his eye. He delved deeper into his memories, remnants of the original Naruto series flickering to life. Kyujuk, one of the first generation's elite Jonin within Akatsuki, possessed considerable strength. He even managed to hold his own against Obito for a short time during the organization's attack. Tragically, his attempt at a final, self-sacrificing attack with a family secret technique was thwarted by Obito's Kami. After all, the latter possessed some read sheet level ability that assisted him for causing Fourth Ninja War. The lava style, quicklime congealing technique bestowed by the system undoubtedly originated from Kyujuk's lineage. While acquiring the coveted lava style bloodline would have been ideal, the reality was different. This is also acceptable. With a focused mind, Byakuya formed the necessary hand seals, channeling his chakra to activate the newly acquired technique. The ground before him shimmered, rapidly hardening into a layer of cement that solidified at an impressive speed. Witnessing the rapid solidification, Byakuya couldn't help but admire this lava technique. This jutsu, intended by Kyujuk for a desperate last stand, held far greater utility in Byakuya's eyes. More than useful. It's practically a construction marvel. While Kyujuk envisioned a final, self-sacrificial act in the anime, Byakuya saw endless possibilities. This jutsu could revolutionize the Akatsuki base's dilapidated state. Heck, he could even start a construction company with it. A mischievous glint flickered in his eyes. Later, I'll suggest this to Yahiko. Kyujuk cannot be sacrificed now. With a newfound purpose, Byakuya closed the system panel and headed towards the training ground. Today's session was already underway. After borrowing Nagato from Yahiko, with a promise to return him in pristine condition, of course, Byakuya began their specialized training regimen aimed at unlocking Nagato's Rinnegan potential. Compared to a goldmine of potential like Nagato, the feedback strength Byakuya received from the other Akatsuki members, though valuable, paled in comparison. Reaching the training grounds, Byakuya found Nagato clad in a training suit, ready for their session. Chapter 28, Guidance from the Sage of Six Paths. A hint of apprehension danced in Nagato's eyes as he spotted the familiar figure of Byakuya approaching. It wasn't Byakuya's formidable strength that caused the unease but the grueling training sessions he seemed to relish. Nagato vividly recalled their last encounter. The last time they sparred, Yahiko approached Nagato and encouraged him to embrace his arrangement and harness the power of the Rinnegan. Nagato, naturally, agreed, only to be plunged headfirst into a week of training that could only be described as a nightmare. With a wary exchange of glances, Nagato, summoning his courage, voiced his trepidation. Byakuya, are we going to repeat yesterday's weighted training? Byakuya, his stoic expression etched on his face, nodded. Don't worry. I'll be training alongside you. Without further ado, the two launched into their special training. The routine was deceptively simple, 100 grueling laps around the training ground, burdened by 20-pound weights. This was just the first round, followed by an onslaught of frog jumps, challenging rock climbs, and a myriad of other exercises designed to push their bodies to the limit. Byakuya's rationale behind these brutal training sessions was clear. Nagato's physical fitness was abysmal. Despite wielding the legendary Rinnegan, his endurance paled in comparison to the Six Paths of Pain. While Nagato's low steam contributed somewhat to this disparity, the core issue lay within Nagato's limited chakra reserves. The Rinnegan, a chakra-guzzling machine, drained Nagato's vitality with alarming speed. Ideally, transplanting Hashirama cells would have been the perfect solution. Unfortunately, Byakuya wasn't in possession of such a rare commodity. Left with limited options, he resorted to the most fundamental method for strengthening the body, old-fashioned physical training, hoping to alleviate the strain placed on Nagato by the Rinnegan. Hours bled into one another as they pounded the training ground with weary legs. Finally, exhaustion claiming victory, they collapsed onto nearby tree stumps, ravenously devouring cold rice balls for sustenance. Byakuya, ever the blunt one, broke the silence. Nagato-senpai, frankly, you're far too weak. Your physical prowess is frankly pathetic for a descendant of the Uzumaki clan. Running a few dozen kilometers with weighted training is beyond you, you wouldn't even last as long as an average person. Nagato, his face flushed red with exertion and a hint of shame, could only manage a heavy breath. He harbored a silent rebuttal, an indignant reminder that they were both Uzumaki, both imbued with the clan's resilience. But faced with the undeniable reality that Byakuya, despite his younger age, far surpassed him in physical strength, Nagato held his tongue. He had no ground to stand on. The true crux of Nagato's confusion lay in Byakuya's seemingly contradictory approach. Byakuya had spoken passionately about unlocking the Rinnegan's potential, yet their current training regimen focused solely on physical conditioning. Nagato struggled to connect the dots. Byakuya, we're supposed to be developing the power of the Rinnegan, so why are we doing physical training? Byakuya met Nagato's gaze with a calm assurance. It's simple, Nagato-senpai. Even for a Rinnegan wielder, the body remains the foundation of a powerful ninja. Remember the aftermath of your Rinnegan usage in the Hidden Grass Village? It's been on my mind ever since. The best solution I could devise to assist you is to strengthen your physical fortitude. Only then can we mitigate the toll the Rinnegan takes on your body. My goal is to enhance your strength without compromising your physical well-being. Nagato absorbed Byakuya's explanation, a contemplative silence settling over him. Finally, a resolute nod accompanied his reply. Byakuya, I trust your judgment. I'll dedicate myself to this physical training. With renewed determination, Nagato devoured the remaining rice balls and wasted no time in resuming their grueling exercises. Byakuya followed silently, a hint of relief softening his features as he observed Nagato's unwavering resolve. During his Akatsuki days, Nagato had exhibited a remarkable willingness to consider others' perspectives, which some might construe as a lack of personal initiative. His focus seemed to lie more on achieving goals for the collective rather than personal advancement. Even after Yahiko's tragic death, Nagato clung fiercely to the ideal of peace, albeit through increasingly extreme methods. Byakuya recognized this as a quality that could be harnessed. With a little guidance, Nagato would push himself to his absolute limits, even to the point of exhaustion. Suppressing his introspective musings, Byakuya cast his gaze towards the distant forest, his mind preoccupied with devising a strategy to help Nagato unlock the Rinnegan's true potential, all while remaining under Madar's watchful eye. The memory of White Zetsu's presence from their previous encounter resurfaced. He vividly recalled the fluctuations in their chakra signatures. Byakuya, armed with the knowledge of future events, a privilege his plot-induced advantage offered, could effortlessly determine whether White Zetsu lurked nearby. The answer was clear, he was absent. Nagato's existence was a constant target for White Zetsu's watchful eyes, a 24/7 surveillance that extended even to his meals and sleep. While Nagato himself wasn't significant enough to warrant Madara Uchiha's direct attention, his connection to the Rinnegan could raise suspicion. Maintaining a friendly relationship with Nagato was acceptable, but delving too deeply into the secrets of the Rinnegan was an invitation for Madara's scrutiny. Weakened by the loss of his Rinnegan and the ravages of time, it was uncertain whether Madara still possessed the strength that once made him a legend of the shinobi world. Dealing with him, Byakuya mused, wouldn't necessarily require unleashing the full power of his Susanoo. A plan began to form in Byakuya's mind. With a practiced sequence of hand seals, he summoned a paper clone, dispatching it to their living quarters to retrieve a dusty tome chronicling the legend of the Six Paths Sage. The shinobi world was awash with myths and legends surrounding this enigmatic figure. Byakuya intended to leverage these historical accounts to guide Nagato in unlocking the true potential of the Rinnegan. As the paper clone returned with the hefty book, Byakuya eagerly flipped through its pages, encountering tales of the Six Paths Sage's divine power, the power he used to create the world, humanity, and even the very foundation of the shinobi way of life. A smirk played on Byakuya's lips as he skimmed through a few passages. It seemed these historical accounts were heavily embellished. The Six Paths Sage wasn't a literal creator deity, nor did he single-handedly birth humanity. His true contributions lay in the creation of the nine-tailed beasts and the establishment of the shinobi code, aspects Byakuya could readily utilize. However, the Six Paths Sage's mythical status offered a degree of creative freedom. To effectively guide Nagato's training, Byakuya reasoned, he could add a touch of his own interpretation to the narrative. With this strategy in mind, Byakuya instructed his paper clone to continue the rigorous training with Nagato while he himself retreated to the cover of the nearby bushes. There, nestled in the foliage, he meticulously formulated a plan to manipulate the existing mythology and steer Nagato towards mastering the Rinnegan. Several grueling hours later, Nagato finally completed the grueling training regimen. As he returned to the training ground, he spotted Byakuya perched on a chair, engrossed in a book. Byakuya waved him over, a glint of triumph in his eyes. Nagato-senpai, I have discovered means to significantly develop your Rinnegan training. Tears welled up in Nagato's eyes. After weeks of relentless training, he had finally reached the stage where he could truly begin to unlock the power of the Rinnegan. Byakuya finally had the means to unlock Nagato's Rinnegan's true potential. Chapter 29, Madara's Thoughts. Madara Uchiha, his eyes narrowed in concentration on the live broadcast from the grassland, scoffed. A seasoned schemer nearing his twilight years, Madara's greatest pastime was no longer the battlefield. Instead, it was cultivating pawns to realize the grand vision inscribed on the Uchiha clan tablet, the infinite Tsukaimi, a world under his absolute control. In this intricate plan, Nagato, the young man burdened with the Rinnegan, the legendary six paths of Sage's power, was the linchpin for his resurrection. To ensure Nagato wielded the Rinnegan for his ultimate purpose, Madara had subtly manipulated the young Obito, a promising Uchiha with a tragic past. He'd nurtured Obito's rage and despair, molding him into a vessel for his will, a new Madara who would control Nagato and activate the Rinnegan at the opportune moment. White Zetsu, his reliable spy and foot soldier, had already been dispatched to retrieve the critically injured Obito. Once Obito was revived and honed into a capable ninja, Madara could finally embrace death, confident in his return through the samsara of heavenly life technique embedded within Nagato. However, the tedious wait for Obito's recovery forced Madara to shift his focus. He couldn't afford any unforeseen complications with Nagato, especially considering the young man's volatile Jinchuriki status. This scrutiny also brought another figure into his purview, Byakuya. Madara, ever the keen observer, was intrigued by this Jonin-level shinobi who dared to manipulate Hidden Grass Village and hold his own against Nagato. White Zetsu was tasked with uncovering Byakuya's past as well. Byakuya's presence, a wild card in his carefully orchestrated plan, piqued Madara's curiosity. Truth be told, when Byakuya offered to assist Nagato in unlocking the full potential of the Rinnegan, a trigger of anticipation, a rare emotion for the stoic Madara, stirred within him. A sliver of worry surrounded him. If Nagato truly unearthed powerful Rinnegan techniques under Byakuya's unorthodox tutelage, it could complicate his resurrection. But a part of him, a remnant of the ambitious Madara who once sought to reshape the world, was also curious to see what this young man could accomplish with the fabled eye. Perhaps Byakuya's methods, unconventional as they seemed, might yield unexpected results. Yet, as he witnessed Byakuya pull out a mythical book and pledge to guide Nagato, Madara, the observer from afar, couldn't help but scoff. The myths were riddled with inaccuracies, the true path to mastering the Rinnegan lay engraved on the Uchiha stone. Mastering the Rinnegan wasn't a simple feat. Even a prodigy like him, hailed as the strongest Uchiha of his generation, required decades to fully harness its power. The scoff morphed into a full-blown snort as White Zetsu materialized beside him, his voice laced with urgency. Lord Madara. Someone is aiding Nagato with the Rinnegan. This could disrupt your plans. Madara responded with a chilling snort, his disdain for White Zetsu palpable. These White Zetsu clones, sharing the same dull personality as Hashirama. What do they know? Mastering the Rinnegan is no child's play. It takes years of rigorous training, an iron will, and a deep understanding of its true potential. These fools wouldn't recognize that potential even if it stared them in the face. Then a drop of amusement danced in Madara's lone. Perhaps Byakuya's unorthodox approach, fueled by these mythical texts, might unintentionally lead Nagato down a path closer to the truth than Madara anticipated. It was a gamble, but one Madara was willing to take. After all, a little chaos could be a catalyst for unexpected discoveries. The training ground bustled with the remnants of their intense session. Nagato, skepticism etched on his face, eyed Byakuya who had just lowered the mythological tome. Are you sure these sources are reliable, Byakuya? He inquired, the tremor in his voice betraying a slice of doubt despite his attempt to appear confident. It wasn't that he didn't trust Byakuya, but the proposed method struck him as wildly unorthodox. Byakuya met his gaze with unwavering seriousness. I understand your reservations, Nagato-senpai. Frankly, even I find this approach rather outlandish. However, the ninja world possesses scant information on the Rinnegan, mostly shrouded in myth and legend. Nagato approached Byakuya, his brow furrowed in concentration as he picked up the worn book and flipped through its pages. Even so, doesn't it seem a bit exaggerated? Can we truly rely on mere myths to unlock the potential of the Rinnegan? A contemplative silence descended upon them. Byakuya broke it, gesturing for Nagato to turn to the book's first page. See here. This passage recounts the legendary Six Paths Sage, his creation of the world, shaping mountains and carving rivers. In the past, such feats were dismissed as mere fables, beyond the reach of any ninja. He continued, his voice rising in emphasis. But Nagato-senpai, you yourself wield the power of gravity and repulsion. You can manipulate boulders and reshape the landscape. As your mastery grows, could moving mountains and carving seas truly be outside the realm of possibility? Don't you see? This might very well be a power inherent in the Rinnegan. Nagato's expression softened in dawning comprehension. Confusion surfaced in his eyes as he spoke. I understand what you're saying. I can manipulate gravity and repulsion, but beyond that, I have no clue what other abilities the Rinnegan possesses. What direction should I take my training? A playful smirk tugged at the corner of Byakuya's lips. "Nagato-senpai, you truly lack imagination," he teased good-naturedly. He flipped to the second page, revealing an illustration of the six paths sage breathing life into humanity. The next logical step, of course, is to explore using the Rinnegan to create life itself. Nagato's jaw dropped in astonishment. Create life? But how? What specific techniques would I need? He stammered, his voice thick with disbelief. Byakuya's brow furrowed as he pondered. There's a rumor about the Nara clan in Hidden Leaf Village. They possess the unique skill of shadow manipulation, a yin-style technique that allows them to alter the shape of shadows. Additionally, the Akimaki clan utilizes yang style to manipulate their physical forms. He continued, his voice laced with excitement. Perhaps, by merging yin and yang style techniques, we might unlock the secret to creating new life. Nagato's brow furrowed in contemplation. Byakuya's words carried a certain weight of truth. He'd heard whispers about the capabilities of yin and yang style from Jiraiya, his sensei. But the notion of fusing these two opposing chakra natures to create life was a concept he'd never encountered before. The very thought of merging yin and yang presented a daunting challenge in itself. Nagato's brow furrowed further at Byakuya's light-hearted advice. Don't worry about it, Nagato. Just focus on channeling yin and yang chakra within your body using the Rinnegan. Even if you don't succeed in creating life, it's still a valuable learning experience. Byakuya chuckled, dispelling the tension. Nagato nodded solemnly, settling onto the ground on his cross-legged back. He immediately began the arduous task of simultaneously channeling the yin and yang chakras. Meanwhile, miles away, Madara watched the live broadcast with a growing sense of unease. The myth depicted the six paths sage breathing life into existence and the possibility that the Rinnegan could truly create life gnawed at him. White Zetsu, after all, was a testament to the Rinnegan's power. But the sheer outlandishness of the concept, coupled with the mythological source, made him scoff. He wrestled with the implications for several minutes. Back on the training ground, sweat beaded on Nagato's forehead as he persisted in his attempt. Despite his valiant efforts, creating life remained elusive. However, as he finally ceased exerting, a black rod materialized in his palm. He looked up at Byakuya, panting, and spoke with a hint of apology. I failed to create life, but I managed this with yin-yang style. Byakuya's initial disappointment was expertly masked. Inwardly, however, he was elated. This black rod, a product of yin-yang style, possessed the remarkable ability to both seal and transmit chakra remotely. It was, in fact, the cornerstone for creating the six paths of pain. Not a complete loss at all, Nagato-senpai. This black rod is a significant development. We need to persist with our training, and we'll undoubtedly unlock even more abilities. Now, let's delve into the functions of this fascinating creation. Byakuya said with a reassuring smile. Nagato mirrored Byakuya's smile, a sense of relief washing over him. Deep within his subterranean lair, Madara grappled with a complex mix of emotions. A flicker of hope had ignited at the sight of the black thing, leading him to believe Nagato might have indeed created a white Zetsu. However, disappointment replaced hope when he realized it was merely a black rod. It served as a stark reminder that Nagato was merely a vessel, incapable of fully wielding the Rinnegan's power. However, he felt a little envious. Nagato, a mere teenager, had managed to create something entirely new in a remarkably short time. This realization stung Madara's pride. The legendary Uchiha. Seems you miscalculated, Lord Madara. It appears Byakuya and Nagato have actually developed a new jutsu based on the myth book. White Zetsu piped up inopportunely, drawing attention to the black rod. Madara's icy gaze snapped towards White Zetsu, who immediately shrank back, sensing the murderous aura emanating from his master. Once White Zetsu had scurried away, Madara focused on the upcoming task of training Obito. After all, as the harbinger of a new world order, Madara couldn't bear the thought of being outdone by a teenager. He resolved to implement a more rigorous and specialized training regimen for Obito, his heir apparent. Only through exceptional training could he ensure Obito possessed the strength to control Nagato and fulfill his grand design. Chapter 30, Obito meeting Madara. Several hours bled into night. Madara Uchiha, a stoic figure perched on a chair, fixed his gaze on the holographic projection before him. White Zetsu had completed his task. Obito's mangled form lay recuperating nearby. Patience, a quality Madara had honed over decades, was key now. He waited for Obito to stir. A groan echoed through the cavernous space, signaling Obito's return to consciousness. The oppressive darkness of the ceiling was the first thing to greet his blurry vision. Panic clawed at him as he tried to rise, only to discover his body was a traitor, refusing to obey his commands. He could only manage a sluggish turn, his lone remaining eye scanning his surroundings in a desperate attempt to understand his predicament. His gaze landed on Madara Uchiha, The Sharingan in the old man's eye, a beacon in the gloom. A torrent of questions flooded Obito's mind. Where was he? Who was this imposing Uchiha elder? He prided himself on recognizing most of the village's senior members, but this figure remained a complete stranger. Most importantly, was he dead? Or was he somehow alive, adrift in a nightmarish limbo? Madara, sensing Obito's awareness, deactivated the white Zetsu projection with a flip of his wrist. He rose with a slowness born of age and approached the young Uchiha. Young Uchiha. You've finally awakened. Madara rumbled in a voice surprisingly gentle for its gravelly quality, but it scared the hell out of drama queen Obito. Who are you? Some reaper destined to claim Uchiha souls? Please, have mercy. I beg you, don't take my life. Logic dictated that only a fellow Uchiha could possess the Sharingan. Yet, there hadn't been any news of defectors, especially not one as frail as this old man. The most logical explanation, then, was that he faced a malevolent spirit, a grim reaper of the Uchiha clan. Madara was speechless, momentarily stunned by Obito's frantic pleas. A genius who'd awakened the rare Tsutomu Sharingan in his youth, and yet, here he was, getting scared of some ghost at Obito's age. Madara had already led his clan into battle against the Senjus. It was this very naivety, however, that made Obito the perfect candidate for his grand design. After all, wasn't it extreme love that fueled the most potent hatred? Witnessing the brutality of the ninja world would surely forge a formidable Mangekyo Sharingan within the young Uchiha. But for now, Madara knew, patience was required. He would orchestrate Obito's awakening slowly, meticulously. A contemplative silence descended upon them. Finally, Madara spoke, his voice laced with a hint of weariness. There was a time when they called me the Death God. Now, however, I am but a shadow of my former self, an Uchiha ghost haunting the ninja world. You can call me Madara. Madara Uchiha. Obito's breath hitched. Madara? As if that. Madara, the Uchiha leader? He's been dead for years. Madara's lips curled into a sardonic sneer. So you find it easier to believe I'm a reaper of souls than Madara Uchiha himself? Times have truly changed. The new generation forgets legends all too quickly. But that's of little consequence now. So many years have passed. He shifted in his seat, leaning forward with an intensity that belied his years. However, before the earth claimed you when the boulder crushed you, I saved your life. How do you plan to repay my kindness? Obito's gaze darted down to his bandaged midsection. A flicker of recognition sparked in his eyes as he recalled the events before his descent into unconsciousness. This Madara, this spectral figure, had indeed saved him. What repayment do you seek for such a kindness? Obito inquired, a flicker of wariness creeping into his voice. Surely you wouldn't expect me to become your servant? I am indebted to you for saving my life, but the war rages on outside. My comrades need me. They need my protection. He attempted to rise, a surge of determination pushing against his weakened body. You can't leave if you want. Just leave your Sharingan and half of your body. Although I don't lack Sharingan, I also want to collect a few more Sharingan as a backup. Madara smirked. I can leave if that's all you desire. But wouldn't taking my Sharingan, half my body, be a bit excessive? You already possess Sharingan, why collect more as mere backups? Obito's defiance surprised Madara, but a flicker of amusement danced in his lone eye. This boy, brash and naive, possessed a fire that could be molded. He watched with detached patience as Obito slumped back onto the bed, his bravado fading into a desperate plea. What kind of repayment do you require? Is there a way to repay your debt and still be free? Surely you don't intend to imprison me indefinitely? Madara met Obito's gaze, his patience unwavering. He had a plan, a meticulously crafted path to mold Obito into his successor. All he needed was the right moment, the moment to expose Obito to the true darkness of the ninja world, a darkness that would fuel despair and ultimately lead him to embrace Madara's vision, the Eye of the Moon plan. But then, a memory surfaced in Madara's mind, a fragment of the scene he'd witnessed through the white Zetsu projection. A new idea, a twisted seed of manipulation, began to take root. White Zetsu materialized from the shadows, a silent specter tasked by Madara. In its spindly hand, it held a scroll, an advanced fire-style technique. White Zetsu presented the scroll to Obito, who accepted it with one hand, his brow furrowed in concern. Repaying your debt won't be a quick endeavor. Master this jutsu first. Before I succumb to sleep again, I expect to see you perform it flawlessly. Don't disappoint me. With that pronouncement, Madara slumped back in his chair, his eyelids fluttering shut. Only a handful of white Zetsu remained, their vacant eyes fixed on Obito. Madara, sustained by the life force of the demonic statue of the outer path, loathed his frail shell. Aside from keeping tabs on a few key figures, he spent most of his existence in a state of slumber. Obito, wincing with each movement, propped himself against the damp wall. With his one good hand, he unfurled the scroll, revealing the complex seals for fire style, majestic flame annihilation. A high-level B-rank jutsu. He'd only witnessed Jonin within his clan wield such power. Mastering it would demand considerable time and chakra reserves. He stole a glance at the slumbering Madara, then at the grotesque white zetsu surrounding him. The memory of his ravaged body, devoid of sensation, stoked a deep despair. Resigned to his captivity, Obito delved into the intricacies of the scroll. Since escape seemed an immediate impossibility, focusing on honing his skills became his sole solace. Perhaps, in time, he'd possess the strength to protect Rin and Kakashi. He could even use his newfound abilities to impress Minato, his revered sensei. Days bled into one another. Then, one morning, Madara stirred from his slumber, his gaze snapping towards Obito. "Have you mastered the jutsu? It's been 3 days only, and I am not seeing any progression." Obito flinched, startled by the sudden interruption. Regaining his composure, he countered, "This is such a complex jutsu. 3 days are simply insufficient. Mastering it will take at least 3 weeks." Madara snorted derisively. "Pathetic talent. At this glacial pace, repaying your debt in this lifetime seems unlikely." Obito, surprisingly, had begun to adjust to his bizarre circumstances. He met Madara's scorn with a hint of defiance. Even Kakashi, a prodigy, wouldn't master this jutsu in 3 days. "Your expectations are unreasonable." "Unreasonable, am I?" Madara's voice dripped with icy amusement. He beckoned a white zetsu forward, who promptly activated a holographic projection. The scene depicted a training session between Nagato and a cloaked figure, Byakuya. After a grueling physical training session that stretched for kilometers, Byakuya produced a peculiar book, its pages filled with fantastical tales of the Six Paths Sage. He then proceeded to manipulate Nagato with its fantastical contents. Obito, his curiosity piqued after weeks of isolation, edged closer to Madara's side. The bleakness of his underground confinement had fostered a yearning for any glimpse of the outside world. The projection held his full attention. Chapter 31, Uzumaki Sealing Techniques. Bewilderment clouded Obito's face as he watched the scene unfold in White Zetsu's projection. Was this a genuine ninjutsu lesson? Or some cruel joke? However, the two figures sparring on screen stirred a strange familiarity within him. Weren't those Byakuya and Nagato the same duo who'd saved Rin a while back? A sudden realization struck him. Why do Nagato's eyes look like spirals? Could it be they'd disguised themselves during their encounter? And what in the world was Madara Uchiha doing, intently observing these two? Like, the people in the projection were still teens and an old man like Madara observing them seemed a bit creepy if you ask Obito. As if reading his mind, Madara spoke with an unnerving calmness. The Rinnegan, quite a sight, isn't it? Those were once my eyes. Now, mere replacements. Obito furrowed his brow, confusion etching a line on his forehead. Replacements? But your eyes, they were Sharingan, weren't they? Ordinary Sharingan evolves. It goes from 3 Tomoe, then Mangekyo. What's so outlandish about them eventually becoming the Rinnegan? Madara explained, his voice devoid of urgency. If those were originally yours, why are they in someone else's head? Obito pressed, suspicion hardening his resolve. A slow smile crept across Madara's face. For the Eye of the Moon plan. I will create a world free of pain, with no suffering. A world where everyone exists within a blissful illusion, aging peacefully until their inevitable deaths. Obito scoffed, dismissing Madara's plan as the delusional rantings of a broken old man. A fabricated reality leading to an equally fabricated death? You're truly a joke, old man. I'm getting out of here once I repay my debt for saving my life. I want to live in reality. Madara remained undisturbed by the youthful jabs. Back to the matter at hand. Nagato's talent surpasses yours, wouldn't you agree? Even without a ninjutsu scroll, he unlocked the Rinnegan's potential. For the first time, Obito found himself speechless. There was no denying Nagato's prodigious talent, far exceeding his own. However, in the next moment, Obito seemed to think of something and retorted. Maybe Nagato is more gifted, but maybe your teaching methods are old and poor. Throwing a dusty scroll at me, who learns like that? If you'd actually guided me properly, wouldn't my progress be faster? A satisfied smirk played on Madara's lips. The seed of doubt had been planted. Obito sought his guidance, a perfect opening for manipulation. He only needed to bide his time, weaving a web of lies that would inevitably lead Obito down a path of despair, a path that would ultimately serve his grand scheme. Inside the Akatsuki base. The scene shifted to Nagato's training ground. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, dappling the ground where Nagato sat cross-legged. He raised an eyebrow as Byakuya materialized beside him, a black rod clutched in one hand and a weathered scroll clutched in the other. Byakuya, are we continuing to research the abilities of the black rods today? Nagato inquired. The sight of Byakuya engrossed in the mythical texts exploring the Rinnegan's abilities had become familiar. Nagato himself shared Byakuya's growing suspicion. The Sage of Six Paths, he believed, had documented the Rinnegan's potential within these historical texts, a legacy for future generations to inherit. Until Nagato's own awakening, however, the texts had been relegated to the realm of mere myth. The yin-yang style, technique, while impressive, only managed to create the black rods, not true life. Perhaps his own power simply wasn't on par with the legendary sage. A nagging sense of incompleteness lingered, a feeling that something was missing, something essential for the creation of true life. Despite their limitations, the black rods were far from useless. They possessed the unique ability to restrict chakra flow, act as communication channels, and even manipulate animals within the forest by transforming them into controllable beasts through rod insertion. Today, we'll develop other abilities. We won't be studying the black rods for now. Byakuya replied, shaking his head. He sheathed the yin-yang style, long sword he'd recently tasked Nagato with forging and fell silent, contemplating the best course of action. Fabricating techniques to guide Nagato in unlocking the Rinnegan's remaining powers posed a significant challenge. Abilities like those granted by the Naraka path and the human path were particularly intriguing. They held the potential to significantly enhance Nagato's prowess. As Byakuya deliberated, he couldn't help but sense a familiar presence hidden within the gnarled trunk of a nearby tree, a white zetsu, its surveillance becoming an unwelcome routine. Nagato's growing power had recently yielded Byakuya an unexpected reward, the mind's eye of the Kagura. This potent sensory jutsu, the pinnacle of Uzumaki clan techniques, amplified his perception, extending his sensory range for dozens of kilometers. Thanks to this newfound ability, he could pinpoint the exact location of the white zetsu. However, the constant scrutiny fueled a growing suspicion. It was clear that Madara was keeping a watchful eye on them, a fact that reinforced the necessity of his cautious approach. Directly revealing the Rinnegan's abilities and providing explicit guidance to Nagato would not only raise Madara's suspicions but potentially sow distrust in Nagato himself. A solution presented itself after delving into the texts, uncovering a passage about the Sage of Six Paths' ability to absorb chakra from others. Inspired by this discovery, Byakuya approached Nagato with a plan to unlock the Rinnegan's chakra absorption ability. Nagato's mastery of the technique was swift. As Byakuya weaved hand seals and conjured a torrent of water, Nagato focused, absorbing the chakra infused within the jutsu. With a swift, silent motion, the water stream dissipated instantly, leaving behind only the faintest ripple on the forest floor. I've mastered another new ability. Nagato's face broke into a wide grin as he exclaimed, a genuine thrill evident in his voice. Byakuya mirrored Nagato's satisfaction, a chime echoing within his mind. System prompt: Akatsuki gains a Kage-level strongman, rewarding Uzumaki clan sealing technique. A flicker of surprise momentarily crossed Byakuya's features. Kage level? Had Nagato truly reached that level of power already? Reflection cleared his initial shock. It made sense. Nagato was 16 now, his body mature enough to handle the basic demands of the Rinnegan. He'd already mastered a formidable arsenal: Shinra Tensei, Bansho Tenin, chakra absorption, and black rod creation. Each of these abilities could elevate an individual to elite Jonin status. Combined, they undoubtedly pushed Nagato into the Kage tier. However, this milestone also presented a challenge. Significant leaps in power would become increasingly difficult. To reach the coveted Super Kage level, Nagato would need to refine his mastery over the Rinnegan's vast potential and seamlessly integrate them into his combat style. This Super Kage level, not mentioned in the original series, denoted a ninja surpassing the prowess of the 5 Kage. In the system's language, it implied possessing the combat strength to take on an entire shinobi village single-handedly. At his peak wielding the 6 paths of pain, Nagato could arguably reach this level. Pushing the thought aside, Byakuya claimed the system's reward, the Uzumaki clan sealing technique. It wasn't just a single technique but rather a comprehensive package resembling the basic paper style, encompassing a variety of Uzumaki sealing methods. You have obtained the sealing technique, 4-symbol seal. You have obtained the sealing technique, adamantine sealing chains. You have obtained the sealing technique, dead demon consuming seal. You have obtained the sealing technique, contract seal. The sheer number of sealing techniques flooding his repertoire overwhelmed Byakuya. He knew these would require significant practice in the future. There was no escaping his connection to the Uzumaki clan. Any attempt to distance himself would be met with disbelief. A tinge of disappointment pricked him. No Rinnegan reward this time. He understood that these rewards were rare, likely reserved for when Akatsuki boasted a member surpassing the Super Kage level. Some experience with the system had revealed its pattern. Rewards were tightly linked to the organization's members' strengths. Ordinary members yielded basic elemental techniques like fire style or water style. Only Jonin and higher caliber members triggered valuable rewards for him. Yet, even basic attributes, when accumulated, could snowball into a terrifying force. Shaking off his momentary lapse, Byakuya decided to contribute a few of the simpler sealing techniques to the organization. If others within Akatsuki could utilize these techniques, it would strengthen the group as a whole, potentially leading to even more advantageous rewards for him. Chapter 32, The Destroyed Uzumaki Clan. Several days passed, and Byakuya found himself surprisingly adept at the Uzumaki sealing techniques bestowed by the system. While the dead demon-consuming seal remained a challenge due to its rigorous activation requirements, he'd honed his proficiency with the others. Repeated practice yielded satisfying results. These seals could effectively hinder White Zetsu's unwelcome intrusions and prying eyes. However, Byakuya opted for a subtle approach. He refrained from plastering the entire base with these barriers, choosing instead to place them around his own room strategically. His keen sensory perception, courtesy of the mind's eye of the Kagura, allowed him to pinpoint White Zetsu's location, eliminating the need for excessive caution. An overly guarded stance could arouse Madara's suspicion, inadvertently revealing his awareness of White Zetsu's presence. Maintaining this delicate balance was key. As for the possibility of White Zetsu breaching his room during his absence, Byakuya had meticulously erased any remnants of his transmigration. His room now contained only a single, innocuous item, a diary chronicling Akatsuki's daily activities. With his room secured, Byakuya made his way to Karen's quarters, his knuckles rapping gently on the door. A flurry of activity ensued from within, followed by Karen's breathless reply moments later. She swung the door open, embarrassment flushing her cheeks. Byakuya-sama, why the sudden visit? A quick glance at the disarrayed room and Karen's flustered state told Byakuya all he needed to know. He politely closed the door, affording her a moment to compose herself. A few minutes later, a visibly tidier Karen emerged, round glasses perched on her nose and a scholarly aura replacing her earlier fluster. She ushered Byakuya in, her voice a soft murmur. Please excuse the earlier mess, Byakuya-sama. It was quite embarrassing. The room wasn't the only thing messy, was it? A wry smile shone across Byakuya's lips, but he refrained from saying it aloud. Instead, he opted not to dwell on the situation. His primary objectives were to assess Karen's progress and introduce her to the Uzumaki sealing techniques. Don't worry about it, he replied with a reassuring smile, accepting the steaming cup of tea she offered. I came to check on your training and to share some Uzumaki clan sealing techniques with you. Karen's eyes gleamed with excitement at the prospect of learning new jutsu. Thank you, Byakuya-sama. I'll dedicate myself fully to mastering them. Byakuya nodded in approval. These sealing techniques are powerful tools that will undoubtedly serve you well. Let's begin with the fundamentals and gradually progress to more advanced methods. Several hours melted away as Byakuya meticulously guided Karen through the intricacies of the Uzumaki clan sealing techniques. He emphasized each step, ensuring she grasped the principles and could execute them flawlessly. Her swift learning and dedication impressed him. He had no doubt she'd soon wield these potent abilities with mastery. As their session concluded, Byakuya offered a final reminder. Practice these techniques diligently, Karen. They'll not only safeguard you but also bolster our organization's defenses. Karen responded with a fervent nod. I promise I will, Byakuya-sama. Thank you for entrusting me with this knowledge. Leaving Karen's room, Byakuya's lips contained a satisfactory smile. Karen's progress, coupled with the newly acquired sealing techniques, undeniably strengthened their position as a group. This, in turn, would better equip them to face any looming threats. After all, Nagato's growth had plateaued, their advancement now hinged on nurturing other capable members. The comfortable silence stretched for a moment too long. Finally, Byakuya broke it. Karen, how are you faring with the medical ninjutsu and books I gave you? A flicker of surprise crossed Karen's features. Is that the real reason for your visit, Byakuya-sama? Yeah, why else? He countered with a teasing sip of tea. Or perhaps I simply missed having a company of a shut-in girl. It's been a week since I last talked with you. Karen adjusted her glasses, a sheepish smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Past experiences had instilled a fear of venturing outside the base. Coupled with the convenience of living within its walls, where tending to the occasional patient ensured her survival, she saw no reason to leave. I've finished reading the medical books, Byakuya-sama, and I even mastered the mystical palm technique, she said, a small white mouse suddenly materializing in her hand. With a practiced flick of her wrist, she made a shallow cut on the creature's leg. Emitting a vibrant green glow from her palm, she swiftly healed the wound, leaving the mouse none the worse for wear. Byakuya gaped in astonishment. Mastering the mystical palm technique, an A-rank jutsu, was no small feat. It spoke volumes of Karen's aptitude for medical knowledge. A prodigy in the field, she undoubtedly possessed an exceptional talent for healing. However, despite achieving such an accomplishment, her system evaluation remained unchanged. This development piqued Byakuya's curiosity. A shadow of disappointment clouded Karen's face as she noticed Byakuya's bewilderment. Does that mean I wasn't good enough? I've only managed to learn this one jutsu so far. I'm still struggling with the others. Now Byakuya understood. He'd made a mistake in his haste. No, Karen. Don't misunderstand. Mastering the mystical palm technique is a remarkable achievement. It speaks about your talent for medical ninjutsu. He paused, then inquired. But, why haven't you mastered defensive jutsu for your own protection? Karen shook her head in response. No, Byakuya-sama. I've been entirely focused on mastering the medical ninjutsu you provided. There wasn't any mention of learning other types of jutsu. Byakuya nodded, a flicker of understanding passing through his eyes. That explains it. While medical ninjutsu is invaluable, it's equally important to equip yourself with techniques to ensure your safety. Her sole focus on medical techniques had left her vulnerable in terms of self-defense. Karen was still confused. But Byakuya-sama, you only instructed me to study the medical books and learn medical ninjutsu on my own. There wasn't anything mentioned about other forms of training. Byakuya now know everything. Karen hadn't received any instructions regarding combat-oriented jutsu. No wonder her system evaluation remained stagnant at Chunin level. Her strength hadn't increased, a crucial step toward achieving Jounin rank. However, his decision to share the Uzumaki sealing techniques remained a sound one. Good. Now, pack your things. We're heading to the training ground. Karen's eyes widened. The training ground? Yup. Nagato trains there daily, and you'll be joining him. You've been cooped up indoors for too long. And yes, you have gained some weight too. Karen's hand instinctively flew to her stomach, and she sighed dramatically after a quick inspection in the mirror. Gained weight? Karen immediately became alert. After checking herself in the mirror, she sighed, I have gained a bit of weight, but that's the price of comfort. I'm willing to pay a bit more for it. Nevertheless, she gathered her belongings without further argument, ready to follow Byakuya to the training grounds. As they approached the training area, Karen spotted Nagato diligently completing laps. Her shoulders slumped slightly. Byakuya-sama, am I expected to train my body like Nagato? Byakuya let out a sigh. It's not quite the same, Karen. With the Rinnegan and his status as the child of prophecy, Nagato needs a rigorous physical regimen to handle his immense power. Your training will be focused on building a solid foundation in various aspects, not just physical fitness. But remember, Karen, you lack the natural advantages Nagato possesses. Your Uzumaki lineage is your only head start. You'll need to work considerably harder to reach your full potential. Byakuya paused, considering his next words. Unfortunately, sealing techniques are the only way for you to bolster your self-defense capabilities at this point. Karen's eyes softened. Having you by my side is all the protection I need, Byakuya-sama. But halfway through her sentence, Karen seemed to remember something and widened her eyes. Wait a minute, Byakuya-sama. You were just about to introduce me to some sealing techniques, weren't you? But there aren't any in the organization's secret vault. A mischievous glint sparkled in Byakuya's eyes. So, who do you think delivered those jutsu to the vault? He countered with a playful shrug. He tapped her forehead lightly. Let's not waste time. Consider this a lesson, procrastination is a foe. Now, focus. I'm going to teach you the adamantine sealing technique. The name sent a jolt through Karen, momentarily freezing her in place. Adamantine sealing? She gasped, reeling from the unexpected revelation. After a moment to collect herself, she spoke again, her voice laced with concern. Byakuya-sama, this is a highly classified technique within the Uzumaki clan. How did you acquire this knowledge? Byakuya feigned ignorance, furrowing his brow in mock confusion. A secret technique of the Uzumaki clan, you say? It appears to be just another jutsu from my family's dusty bookshelf. Perhaps one of my parents crossed paths with an Uzumaki ninja during their travels. A silent rebuttal formed in Karen's mind. No, you're an Uzumaki, she thought defiantly. Techniques of this caliber wouldn't be casually shared with outsiders. Even within the Uzumaki clan, only elite Jounin level members were entrusted with such knowledge. After a thoughtful pause, Karen spoke with newfound seriousness. Byakuya-sama, there's something Nagato-senpai and I have been meaning to tell you for a while now. We suspect you might be a descendant of the Uzumaki clan, just like us. We couldn't be certain before, but now. She trailed off, Her gaze locked on his. One of your parents must have been a high-ranking Uzumaki ninja. Karen had anticipated a reaction of shock or surprise, but Byakuya's response left her bewildered. He simply offered a faint smile and dismissed her words with a nonchalant wave. Perhaps, but the Uzumaki clan is a relic of the past, long since gone. Even we, you and Nagato, have shed the Uzumaki name. His voice hardened slightly. Instead of dwelling on the past, let's focus on what truly matters, becoming stronger. Chapter 33, Teaching Obito is harder than kicking some Kage-level ninjas. Yes, the Uzumaki clan has been virtually wiped out for generations. We can no longer truly call ourselves Uzumaki ninjas. Those were the words of 12-year-old boy. Karen sighed with a smile. Saying those words aloud felt like a physical weight had been lifted from her shoulders, a burden she carried for far too long. The Uzumaki clan name, once a source of pride, now carried a dark stain. After the land of whirlpools fell, the scattered Uzumaki survivors faced not only the struggles of rebuilding their lives but also the constant threat from those who coveted their power. After all, Uzumaki ninjas were renowned for their immense chakra reserves and formidable sealing techniques, making them prime candidates for gruesome experiments and unwilling vessels for powerful tailed beasts, Jinchuriki. Both fates spelled a life of agonizing misery. Taking a deep breath to steady herself, Karen met Byakuya's gaze directly. Lord Byakuya, let's begin learning the adamantine sealing technique right now. I'm prepared to dedicate myself completely to mastering it. Byakuya, observing Karen's steely resolve, offered a curt nod of approval. He had finally managed to subtly steer the conversation away from the sensitive topic of their Uzumaki heritage. He, too, had chosen not to reveal his lineage. This way, if any other bloodline traits or unique KK Genkai manifested within him in the future, he wouldn't be forced to explain their origin, providing him with a layer of strategic secrecy. Underground space. Madara Uchiha, the shinobi world's Aja, furrowed his brow. His expression was a mask of grim frustration. Teaching Obito to master fire style, majestic flame annihilation, was proving far more difficult than battling Kage-level opponents. In Madara's eyes, the jutsu was a mere trifle. All it required were 2 or 3 hand seals and a manipulation of fire-natured chakra. It shouldn't have taken over a week to master. He was getting suspicious of Obito. Was this brat holding back, purposefully dragging his feet? Obito's eagerness to return to Hidden Leaf Village suggested otherwise. He should have been putting in twice the effort. Obito, diligently practicing hand seals nearby, remained oblivious. He naively believed mastering such a high-level jutsu would be simple. Compared to the great fireball technique, which had taken him months to learn, fire style, majestic flame annihilation felt like an insurmountable wall. Obito couldn't deny a sliver of laziness on his part, but it also highlighted a stark difference in talent compared to Kakashi. He just wouldn't admit it aloud. However, this time, Obito didn't blame himself. He suspected the problem stemmed from Madara's teaching methods. The jutsu scroll clearly outlined over 10 hand seals, but Madara used only 3 during his demonstration. How could Obito, even with his Sharingan, replicate a technique with incomplete information? His attempt to clarify this discrepancy fell upon deaf ears. Madara's disdainful scoff seemed to dismiss Obito's concerns as those of a clueless academy student. Madara Uchiha's scowl deepened as he watched Obito struggle. Your talent is abysmal, Obito. He growled. Learning the majestic destroyer flame shouldn't be this difficult. Perhaps I made a mistake saving you. Maybe you were better off dead. Obito bristled under the constant criticism. It's your teaching that's awful, old man. He shot back. If Kekuamino-sensei were teaching me, I would have mastered this jutsu by now. Madara's brow furrowed. Kekuamino? Who in the world is that? He's a teacher at the Ninja Academy. Obito explained. Just a chunin, but his teaching skills blow yours out of the water. A chunin? Did you just compare me to a chunin? A freaking chunin. Madara sputtered, his eyebrows twitching in disbelief. He readily admitted many surpassed him in skill, like Senju Hashirama or the legendary Sage of Six Paths. But being compared to a chunin was a new low, it was just unacceptable. Don't try to shift the blame, Obito. This is clearly a talent issue. Back in my day, we learned the same way, and even Hashirama only needed a seal or 2 for his jutsu. Only those underhanded Senju fools relied on elaborate hand signs. Besides, my teaching methods are perfectly standard. I haven't just tossed 2 Uchiha scrolls at you and left you to decipher them on your own. I've provided detailed jutsu scrolls. If you still can't learn, the fault lies entirely with you. Madara was getting fed up with Obito. He summoned White Zetsu and instructed him, in a hushed tone. Project a live feed from the Akatsuki training ground, Obito. Watch closely and see how others learn their jutsu. Obito, despite his disdain, complied. He watched the projected scene with a mixture of curiosity about the outside world and a burning desire to find fault with Madara's teaching. He needed to prove it wasn't his own shortcomings, but Madara's inadequate instruction. The scene shifted to Byakuya, who calmly unfurled a scroll containing the adamantine sealing chains jutsu. He then launched into a detailed explanation of the jutsu's principles, including the intricate chakra manipulation involved. Karen, his student, listened intently, asking clarifying questions whenever she encountered something confusing. Byakuya patiently addressed each of her inquiries. Once Karen grasped the theoretical foundation of the jutsu, it was time for practical application. Byakuya meticulously demonstrated the hand signs, explaining each movement and the corresponding chakra flow positions. After several hours of dedicated practice, Karen managed to manifest a single, unstable adamantine sealing chain. It was slow and flimsy, collapsing within seconds, but it was a start nonetheless. Obito seized on the opportunity. "See, old man Madara? That's how a real teacher acts. Look at Byakuya's gentleness and patience, just like Amano-sensei." Madara muttered under his breath, his face clouding with disbelief. "This is unbelievable. The last time I saw him teach, Nagato was struggling with some obscure mythological texts. He couldn't stomach the idea of being inferior to a Chunin, let alone a young upstart." He scrambled to justify himself. Sensing Madara's wavering confidence, Obito pressed his advantage. "That's called adapting your teaching to the student, old man. Different students need different approaches. Nagato's a prodigy, obviously requiring a different method than Karen. That's why Byakuya shifted his methods according to Karen's level." Madara, forced to confront his shortcomings, conceded with a begrudging nod. "Perhaps I was too hasty in my expectations. You're no Nagato, that much is clear. You're unremarkable, a dead last at best." The sting of those words, unremarkable and dead last, ignited a fire in Obito. He may have accepted that label in his past, but hearing it from Madara was unbearable. "I'm not a dead last. I just haven't put in the effort. Just you wait, old man Madara, I'll master this jutsu. And you'll see what a useless teacher you truly are." With newfound determination, Obito snatched the jutsu scroll and devoured its content, vowing not to rest until he succeeded. Perhaps Madara, deep down, recognized his own shortcomings as a teacher. He remained silent in the face of Obito's outburst, his gaze fixed on the projection. He observed Byakuya's meticulous approach with Karen, a flicker of something akin to learning crossing his features. Maybe, just maybe, he could salvage some pride by learning from Byakuya. After all, Hashirama was his only true defeat. Everyone else had fallen before his might. But teaching? That wasn't his forte. Hashirama hadn't been much better. Perhaps, by gleaning some knowledge from Byakuya, Madara could finally surpass Hashirama in this one area, a small victory after 30 years. Chapter 34, Back in My Day. Karen's body and mind were exhausted as she approached Byakuya after casting the adamantine sealing technique again. Disappointment etched itself onto her face as she spoke, her voice heavy with fatigue. "Lord Byakuya, I've poured so much time into this, yet I still haven't mastered the diamond lock. Are you displeased with my aptitude?" Byakuya offered a silent smile, his gaze lingering on Karen. Before commencing their training, he had made it explicitly clear that the adamantine sealing technique was an A-rank jutsu, a level of difficulty reserved for exceptional techniques. Even Jonin from the prestigious ninja villages considered mastering 1 or 2 A-rank jutsu a significant achievement. Karen, however, had managed to manifest a single chain in a mere morning, a feat that undeniably showcased her talent. Byakuya's astute estimation placed her mastery of this A-rank jutsu at most half a month away. Her current claims of lacking talent seemed more like an attempt to shirk the demanding training. After all, her potential mirrored her daughter's, much like in the anime. Discerning Karen's ploy with his characteristic stoicism, Byakuya spoke calmly. "The capacity to learn jutsu varies greatly among individuals, Karen. Sealing techniques might not be your forte. Perhaps I have been overly rigorous in my approach. However, your lack of proficiency in sealing techniques necessitates alternative methods for your protection. Therefore, we shall shift our focus to physical training. I will have a 30-kilogram weight prepared for you. Today's warm-up will consist of a 20-kilometer run. Tomorrow, we will commence your specialized physical training regimen." Byakuya's words struck a chord of discord within Karen. After a moment of internal deliberation, she met his gaze with newfound resolve. "Lord Byakuya, as bearers of the Uzumaki bloodline, I believe we must uphold the traditions of our clan. Mastering Uzumaki sealing techniques are not an option, it's a responsibility I must embrace and carry forward. Is that so?" Byakuya raised an eyebrow with a smile to which Karen offered a determined nod. Though sealing techniques paled compared to the exhilaration of physical training, she recognized the advantage of practicing them at home. This would allow her to circumvent the grueling training regimen Nagato endured daily. Her rudimentary knowledge of medical ninjutsu instilled a sense of confidence. She could manipulate her training to avoid the development of bulky muscles, a transformation she found utterly unappealing. Compared to the harsh realities of the outside world, Karen harbored a deep yearning for the solace of her room. In this haven, she could indulge in her passions, devouring books, delving into the intricacies of medical ninjutsu, and persisting with the sealing techniques that, while tedious, were ultimately bearable. In short, practicing sealing techniques would guarantee her ideal life of a shut-in. Having dismissed Karen to continue honing the adamantine sealing technique, Byakuya embarked on his warm-up routine. His mind, however, remained preoccupied with the burgeoning Akatsuki organization. The current climate seemed ripe for Akatsuki's growth. Externally, Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village were embroiled in a full-blown ninja war, their attention diverted from any potential infiltration of Hidden Rain Village. Internally, Hanzo of the Salamander displayed a blatant disregard for anything beyond the borders of Hidden Rain Village, effectively turning a blind eye to Akatsuki's unfettered recruitment efforts. Should this favorable situation persist, Byakuya envisioned Akatsuki amassing enough power to challenge Hidden Rain Village's leadership and overthrow Hanzo within a time frame of 3 to 5 years. Such a success would undeniably bolster Byakuya's reputation, potentially propelling him to the esteemed ranks of a Kage of the new Hidden Rain Village. However, this optimistic scenario hinged on a crucial factor: time. He was still uncertain of many things. Would Hanzo awaken to the burgeoning threat posed by Akatsuki and move to eradicate them before they could fully mature, potentially leading to a devastating clash with mutual destruction on both sides? The possibility of the 5 great nations launching an impromptu attack on Hidden Rain Village, transforming it back into a war-torn battlefield, was also a concern. These were unsettling unknowns. Just as these anxieties swirled in his mind, an Akatsuki member entered the training ground. The figure bowed respectfully upon seeing Byakuya. "Lord Byakuya, I have brought intelligence from beyond the land of rain for your perusal." With that, the member presented Byakuya with a scroll. Byakuya acknowledged him with a curt nod, signaling his dismissal. He then carefully unfurled the scroll, his eyes intently scanning the intel about the Third Great Ninja War. While the information was limited, its significance was undeniable. The scroll chronicled the pivotal role of Minato no Mikaze, leading Hidden Leaf Village forces, in the destruction of Kanabi Bridge. This decisive victory effectively thwarted Hidden Stones Village's ambitions for a large-scale invasion of Hidden Leaf Village. Both Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Leaf Village, reeling from significant losses, found themselves ill-equipped to sustain large-scale warfare. The scroll included additional info, rumors of a potential intervention by Hidden Mist Village across the sea and a brewing possibility of a major conflict erupting between Hidden Clouds Village and Hidden Leaf Village. However, these peripheral matters held little bearing on the immediate concerns of Akatsuki. However, the conclusion of the Battle of Kanabi Bridge served as a reminder to Byakuya. With the focal point of the Great Ninja Village War shifting, the ambitions within the ninja world could very well turn towards the Land of Rain, potentially exposing Akatsuki's existence. Furthermore, the possibility of Obito already having encountered Madara's manipulations loomed large. Byakuya couldn't shake the chilling thought of Obito potentially operating in the shadows at that very moment. A sudden thought jolted Byakuya, prompting him to glance sharply into the distance. The timeline aligned perfectly. White Zetsu's surveillance had intensified roughly half a month prior. Could this heightened scrutiny coincide with Obito's encounter with Madara? But there were still some doubts. Why would Madara target him and Nagato without any apparent motive? Byakuya possessed none of the alluring qualities of the Senju clan. He hadn't mastered wood style, nor did he bear any physical or personality resemblance to Izuna Uchiha. Logically speaking, he shouldn't be a target unless the old man has a thing for creeping on kids. Brushing these unsettling thoughts aside for the moment, Byakuya summoned Karen and Nagato. He addressed them and relayed the news of the Battle of Kanabi Bridge. This served a dual purpose, partly to motivate them to intensify their training and partly to send a subtle message to Madara and Obito, assuming they were indeed watching. Since Madara's gaze seemed perpetually fixed upon him, Byakuya recognized the need to maintain a semblance of normalcy in his actions. Madara, eavesdropping on Byakuya and the others, propped his chin on a hand. A hint of sentimentality tinged his voice as he remarked. The childish games of war finally draw to a close. Hidden Leaf Village truly has fallen from grace. As a ninja who, alongside Hashirama Senshu, had ushered in an era of relative peace, Madara held the right to make such a statement. Back in his prime, other ninja villages wouldn't dare provoke Hidden Leaf Village. The combined might of his Susanoo and Hashirama's wood style, jutsu, The great Buddha left them with two choices: genuine submission or feigned obedience. Submission, of course, was inevitable. However, a few decades had witnessed a staggering decline in Hidden Leaf Village's power. This was enough to draw Madara's chuckle, bordering on mockery. Obito, engrossed in his ninjutsu training, caught a snippet of Madara's lament. He approached, curiosity etched on his face. What more is coming to an end? The battle over Kanabi Bridge? I had complete faith in Minato-sensei, Kakashi, and Rin. I knew that they will win. Madara cast a dismissive glance at Obito. Had I remained in Hidden Leaf Village, this entire war wouldn't have come to pass. 3 minutes, that's all it would have taken to force that brat Onoki to his knees. Who's Onoki? Obito scratched his head in confusion. Madara looked at Obito with confusion. He was fighting a war and he didn't even know the enemy's Kage's name? Seriously, Hidden Leaf Village Academy, what the hell are you teaching in that hut? The third Sushi Kage, a tenacious little boy. He lacks in true strength, of course. Back in my day, even he and his teacher together couldn't withstand a single exchange with me. Old man Madara, don't you get tired of bragging? Do you honestly believe you could overpower the Sushi Kage? Obito scoffed, crossing his arms, and skepticism laced his voice as he challenged Madara's boastful claims. Madara gripped his fist tight. He was really considering paying Hidden Leaf Village a visit right now. All of his legacy, his prowess and his might, Hidden Leaf Village had robbed everything from the history books, it seems. Chapter 35, The Birth of Black Zetsu. When Obito asked him a direct question, Madara showed a flicker of irritation. He didn't like making empty boasts. It seemed like age hadn't brought any significant upgrades to the Sushi Kage, Onoki. While Onoki had more wrinkles, they wouldn't help against Madara's raw power. Particle style was a formidable technique, but it was useless if it couldn't land a hit. Onoki's reflexes couldn't match Madara's seasoned agility. Obito, sensing a chink in Madara's stoic facade, pressed on. Hey, old man Madara, if you're really as unstoppable as you say, why are you hiding in this dark cave? Why not go back to the village and take back your place as leader? Madara's jaw clenched. He wouldn't admit it to this boy, but the truth was a bitter pill to swallow. The Uchiha clan, blinded by ambition and short-sightedness, had cast him aside. Obito, wise beyond his years, didn't linger on the touchy subject. If you're as powerful as they say, why not just go ahead and do your Eye of the Moon plan? Dealing with the Hokage shouldn't be a challenge for someone like you, right? Madara's silence lingered, heavy with unspoken complexities. Implementing the Eye of the Moon plan wasn't as simple as a walk in the park. It required the capture and sealing of all 9-tailed beasts into the Jado statue, a feat that would inevitably draw the ire of the 5 great nations, uniting them against him. His current physical state was a cruel joke. Using Rinnegan would cause a troll to his body, let alone the thought of undertaking the Herculean task of capturing the scattered-tailed beasts. Even dealing with the doddering Onoki was a gamble at best, a gamble he couldn't afford to lose until he was back at full strength. Restoring his youthful body required meticulous preparation and a willing sacrifice, a Rinnegan wielder to activate the forbidden samsara of heavenly life technique. A dry cough escaped Madara's lips. Know your place. You, a boy who can barely manage a B-rank jutsu, have no right to question my power. And don't forget the debt you owe me for saving your pathetic life. Obito flinched at the reminder. His Hidden Leaf Village upbringing had instilled a deep respect for his elders, but the weight of a life debt was a heavy burden, tilting the negotiating table decidedly in Madara's favor. He fell silent, caught in a snare of his own making. Obito simmered for a long moment, finally collecting his thoughts. I'll pay back what I owe, but you can't force someone to respect you, so don't expect it from me. You've been following Byakuya around for so long, haven't you? Maybe you should get the message, you're not exactly a great teacher. I might never even master fire style, majestic flame annihilation. By following your lead. Madara inhaled deeply, a rasp accompanying the action as he dragged the oxygen tube closer to Obito. Slowly, deliberately, he extended a hand. Obito, caught off guard, froze. Should he dodge? Stand still? Fear prickled his skin, and he ended up shivering in place. Without warning, Madara placed his hand on Obito's forehead. His Sharingan blazed, weaving a Genjutsu. Those trials were all to test your resolve. Now, the true instruction begins. Within this Genjutsu, you'll witness the true power of my teaching methods. Obito's double Tomoe Sharingan offered no defense. He found himself pulled into the sterile white expanse of the Genjutsu space. A youthful Madara stood before him, a faint sigh escaping his lips. Madara spoke with a hint of helplessness. Obito, watch closely. This is how fire style, majestic flame annihilation, is truly performed. With deliberate movements, Madara formed the hand seals, each one a fraction of a second slower than the last. Finally, the powerful words resonated: fire style, majestic flame annihilation. A torrent of flames erupted from the young Madara's mouth, engulfing a vast area hundreds of meters wide for a good 10 seconds. The display was awe-inspiring. As the flames subsided, Obito stared at Madara with newfound respect. The older man reveled in this shift. That was the extent of my power in my youth. Unfortunately, age has taken its toll. This Genjutsu allows me to showcase my skills at their peak. Obito's brow furrowed in suspicion. Your youth? Old man Madara, are you trying to pull a fast one on me? This is a Genjutsu, remember? Could you be exaggerating? Madara scoffed. Lies have no place in my repertoire when it comes to strength. In all the ninja world, only Hashirama Senju surpassed me. All others fell before my might. Confronted with Madara's unwavering conviction, Obito's doubt evaporated. Whoa. Only the Hokage is stronger than you in your prime? Then surpassing you would make me Hokage. Looks like my goals just multiplied. Oh, yeah. Madara's gaze sharpened with interest. You want to be Hokage? You? Obito bristled, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. What's that supposed to mean? Do you think I'm not good enough, like everyone else? Madara shook his head slowly. Not at all. I find the notion of being Hokage laughable. Friendships are sacrificed on the altar of that position. Perhaps that's the price one pays for power. A deep sigh escaped his lips, his voice laced with a hint of melancholy as he reminisced about his past. Obito found these words cryptic, but Madara gave him no time to dwell on them. Don't waste time with doubts, boy. If becoming Hokage is your true desire, then follow me and learn properly. Obito, emboldened by the renewed purpose, nodded resolutely. The dream of becoming Hokage burned brighter than ever within him. Exhaustion finally claimed Obito after a day spent trapped within the Genjutsu's crucible. He emerged, blinking against the harsh cave light, fire style, majestic flame annihilation. Now etched into his muscle memory. The jutsu erupted from his hands with a satisfying roar, mirroring the inferno he'd witnessed in the Genjutsu world. The transformation in Obito's eyes was a level up. The flippant old man Madara was replaced with a reverent Grandpa Madara. The shift tugged at a corner of Madara's weary heart. The Genjutsu had drained him. His breaths came ragged, each movement a struggle. All he craved was a deep, uninterrupted sleep. When he finally stirred, Obito was fast asleep, his body spent from the intense training. Madara propped his head on his hand, the events of the day replaying in his mind. The arguments, the defiance, the flicker of respect in Obito's eyes. A faint smile played on his lips. It had been years since he'd taken a young Uchiha under his wing, not since his dear brother, Izuna. Perhaps training Obito, guiding him towards the Hokage position. The thought sparked a flow of warmth, quickly extinguished by the icy grip of reality. The Hokage? Ridiculous. His purpose, his entire reason for abandoning Hidden Leaf Village, was the Eye of the Moon plan. When had he softened so much? The ambition that once burned like a supernova had dimmed to a flicker. Hashirama, that doofus. He could only see the immediate concerns like the village and clans. Madara's vision encompassed the entire ninja world, a world forever trapped in a cycle of bloodshed. Only the Eye of the Moon plan could usher in true peace, a world where petty disputes were consigned to the dustbin of history. A steely glint returned to his eyes. No more escalating clan battles into village wars. It was time to reignite his resolve. He glanced at Zetsu, the twisted figure lurking in the shadows. With a slow, deliberate movement, Madara extended his arm. Sentimentality was a luxury he couldn't afford. Success hinged on an unwavering loyalty to the plan, a will as unyielding as his own. As the black tendrils of Zetsu engulfed Madara's outstretched arm, a new entity emerged, a perfect embodiment of his ambition. Madara gazed at the newly formed black Zetsu, his voice devoid of warmth. You are the will of Madara Uchiha. From this day forward, you shall be known as Black Zetsu. The bond between Madara and Obito had served its purpose. Their paths would diverge, and their interactions would become a mere footnote in the grand scheme of the Eye of the Moon plan. Chapter 36, A Bet with Yahiko. Just when Madara was making his creation, Top 10 Anime Portrayals aka Bakuzetsu, Byakuya also came out from his meditation. The crimson glow of the setting sun painting the sky in hues of despair sent a silent message. It was time to end the day's training. Byakuya rose to his full height, his voice cutting through the stillness as he called out to Nagato and Akon, two figures barely discernible in the distance. Enough training for today. Pack up your things. We'll be returning shortly. A sigh of relief, almost audible, rippled through the air as Nagato and Akon acknowledged Byakuya's command. While they understood and appreciated the merits of rigorous training, Byakuya's relentless pursuit of perfection could be, well, relentless. After all, even the most dedicated ninja craved a moment's respite from the constant push to excel. As they converged on Byakuya's position, Nagato, seemingly struck by a sudden thought, turned towards Akane. "Did you manage to bring up that topic with Byakuya?" Akane, her expression unreadable, glanced at Nagato before offering a noncommittal shrug. "The Uzumaki lineage? It's practically a certainty at this point. Think about it. Today, Lord Byakuya instructed me in yet another one of the Uzumaki clan's secret sealing techniques. It's undeniable, he has to be a direct descendant." A thoughtful frown creased Akane's brow. Byakuya-sama seems disconnected from his Uzumaki heritage. He never mentions the clan, as if he's forgotten about it. Sometimes, I envy his raven hair. As long as he stays silent, his Uzumaki lineage remains a secret. Nagato's face mirrored Akane's earlier frown, but it quickly morphed into a mask of stoicism. His own mother, despite being an Uzumaki, had chosen to keep her heritage hidden. Tragically, that secrecy hadn't shielded her from a violent end at the hands of none other than Hidden Leaf Village ninjas, supposed allies of the Uzumaki clan. A moment of silence stretched between them before Akane spoke again, her voice softer this time. "However, Byakuya-sama also mentioned that the Uzumaki clan is no more. There's no point in clinging to a name that no longer exists. We simply need to make the most of our lives." Nagato pondered Akane's words, a silent battle raging within him. Finally, a small smile tugged at the corners of his lips. "Byakuya is truly an anomaly. Letting go isn't easy for me, but even though the land of whirlpools has been destroyed, this is our home now." Unaware of the conversation revolving around him, Byakuya observed Nagato and Akane from afar. A knowing smirk played on his lips. He wasn't a Uzumaki, not in the slightest. He felt no emotional ties to a clan that had long faded into oblivion. However, this convenient misunderstanding served his purpose. It painted him as an enigmatic figure, someone who had transcended the shadows of his past, choosing resolute silence over painful memories. Thankfully, their imaginations filled the gaps he so deliberately left open. As Nagato and Akane approached, Byakuya detailed the upcoming training regimen. Their surprise was evident when they learned that they would only be required to train for 10 days in the following month. In their minds, a month with Byakuya usually translated to a month of relentless training. Byakuya, sensing their astonishment, offered a gentle smile. "Don't overthink it. Even the strongest body needs a balance between exertion and rest. Besides, I can't babysit you two constantly. Remember, we are all ninjas, and the day will come when you'll need to go on missions by yourselves." Nagato and Akane exchanged a sheepish glance. They were just about to elaborate when they realized Byakuya had already turned and begun walking away. Watching his retreating figure, Nagato and Akane couldn't shake the peculiar sensation that Byakuya, despite being younger than them both, somehow felt like a wise elder guiding their path. This reversal of roles was a curious anomaly, a result of Byakuya's enigmatic aura. Leaving the training ground behind, Byakuya bypassed his usual path home and instead set his sights on the Akatsuki's headquarters. It had been nearly 2 weeks since he last conferred with Yahiko, and the recent conclusion of the Kanabi Bridge battle demanded their immediate attention. Pushing open the familiar door, Byakuya found Yahiko engrossed in paperwork. A warm smile lit up Yahiko's face as he noticed Byakuya. "Oh, Byakuya, what a pleasant surprise. What brings you here today?" Byakuya's response was curt, almost bordering on irritation. "Leader Yahiko, should I come back later if this is an inopportune time?" Yahiko chuckled, raising a hand in appeasement. "Of course not, my apologies. It's just unusual for you to visit unless a matter of importance arises. Is it about the recent developments at Kanabi Bridge?" Byakuya confirmed Yahiko's suspicion with a curt nod. "That's correct. The conclusion of the battle at Kanabi Bridge signifies a potential shift in the war's trajectory. I estimate that large-scale hostilities between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village will soon subside, forcing both sides to redirect their focus elsewhere. Surely that's a positive outcome?" Yahiko tilted his head in confusion, failing to grasp Byakuya's concern. Byakuya offered a slight shake of his head. "While it may be a welcome development for Hidden Leaf Village in the Land of Grass, it doesn't necessarily bode well for Akatsuki." Yahiko's brow furrowed. "Why is that?" Byakuya leaned forward, his voice taking on a more serious tone. "Though the large-scale battles between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village may cease, covert operations by ninja teams will undoubtedly continue. Infiltration tactics are often employed to weaken the enemy from within. Like causing chaos in occupied territories, or even resorting to impersonating enemy ninjas to eliminate civilians." Byakuya elaborated, his words causing Yahiko's expression to harden. Yahiko was no stranger to the grim realities of war. Byakuya's examples were disturbingly common occurrences, and their potential impact couldn't be ignored. Byakuya, I appreciate a heads up. I'll ensure our ninjas prioritize civilian protection and actively prevent such incidents. That's the fundamental principle upon which Akatsuki was built. Byakuya, however, remained unconvinced. He shook his head slowly. Yahiko, I'm afraid you're missing the bigger picture. My primary concern isn't solely civilian safety, it's Akatsuki's precarious position in the midst of these shifting dynamics. Precarious? Yahiko's voice betrayed his confusion. From his perspective, Akatsuki's current standing was relatively secure. With a roster of nearly 10 elite ninjas, only a direct intervention from the 5 great shinobi villages posed a significant threat. He began, his voice trailing off as he considered the additional threat. The 5 great shinobi villages, and possibly also Hanzo. Yahiko was concerned about the potential danger from the 5 great shinobi villages, which posed a threat to independent organizations. However, he felt relieved when the leader of the Hidden Rain village, Hanzo, was mentioned. Lord Hanzo. Why would he target us? The very suggestion seemed ludicrous to Yahiko. In his mind, Hanzo posed no threat, in fact, the opposite seemed more likely. After all, as long as Hanzo remained open to the idea, Akatsuki could always choose to formally join the Hidden Rain village. Byakuya, you're letting your worries cloud your judgment. There's no reason for Hanzo to seek our destruction. We pose no threat to him. In fact, we could be valuable allies. If he so chooses, Akatsuki can become an official part of the Hidden Rain village at any time. Byakuya met Yahiko's gaze, acknowledging the unwavering determination in his leader's eyes. He wasn't questioning Yahiko's sincerity. In the original timeline, Yahiko readily accepted Hanzo's initial invitation to a meeting, demonstrating his openness to collaboration. Tragically, that meeting had turned into a deadly trap, claiming Yahiko's life. Both Yahiko and Hanzo, in their own ways, had made fatal miscalculations. Hanzo killed Yahiko and Nagato, later as Pain, killed Hanzo. A short scoff escaped Byakuya's lips. Yahiko, I respect your perspective. However, I think Hanzo could be an adversary. If we want Akatsuki to go beyond the limitations of the Hidden Rain village, we may have to confront this aging demigod. Yahiko remained unconvinced. He shook his head, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Byakuya, you're letting your imagination run wild. Akatsuki and Hanzo in conflict? It's simply unfathomable. The 5 great shinobi villages, yes, they might be wary of us, but Hanzo? No, that's out of the question. Witnessing Yahiko's unshakable belief, a sly smile spread across Byakuya's face. He had initially intended to nudge Yahiko towards a more cautious approach, but now a more intriguing proposition presented itself. A gamble. Rising from his chair, Byakuya leaned forward, his eyes locking with Yahiko's. Yahiko, since you're so certain about Hanzo's neutrality, why don't we make a bet? If, within 3 years, Hanzo takes no action against Akatsuki, I'll wholeheartedly support your vision and follow any order you give. On the other hand, if he does make a move against us, I claim the position of leader. At that point, your leadership will have demonstrably failed Akatsuki. Chapter 37, 2 Methods. But if you lose, I want you to give up your position as the leader of Akatsuki. At that point, you'll clearly lack the qualifications to lead this organization. Yahiko didn't respond impulsively. He leaned back in his chair, the weight of Byakuya's proposition falling hard on him. He knew Byakuya well. The man was a meticulous individual who wouldn't make such a gamble without a solid foundation of belief in its outcome. Hanzo of the Salamander, the war hero of the Hidden Rain village. The man who, during the last Great War, had spearheaded the resistance against the encroachment of the major powers. This time around, it was solely due to Hanzo's presence that the flames of war hadn't engulfed the Hidden Rain village once more. There was no logical reason for such a revered figure to target Akatsuki, let alone attack them. But a chilling doubt then shook Yahiko's resolve. What if, against all odds, Hanzo did decide to move against Akatsuki? Yahiko couldn't bear to contemplate the potential consequences. One thing was certain, in such a scenario, he wouldn't just be unfit to lead Akatsuki, he would be a detriment to the organization, a liability rather than a leader. After a long, tense silence, Yahiko finally spoke, his voice laced with a newfound determination. Byakuya, I accept your bet. If Lord Hanzo truly does attack Akatsuki, then the leadership position is rightfully yours. Very well, the bet is established. A satisfied smirk played on Byakuya's lips as he nodded. The bet itself was merely a means to an end. His true objective wasn't the leadership of Akatsuki, it was the opportunity to give Yahiko a reality check in the event of Hanzo's attack. But regarding the possibility of Hanzo's aggression, well, Even if the war hero remained a non-factor for the next 3 years, Akatsuki itself would inevitably initiate a confrontation with the Hidden Rain Village. The reason was simple: the Hidden Rain Village was a small nation, and its limited territory was insufficient to sustain 2 thriving ninja organizations. Regardless of the circumstances, a clash between the fledgling Akatsuki and the established Hidden Rain Village was a matter of when, not if. Their ideologies and goals were fundamentally incompatible, making peaceful coexistence an impossibility. Byakuya knew this as he envisioned the inevitable conflict. The scene shifted after the charged exchange of the bet. Byakuya, ever the strategist, steered the conversation back to his primary objective. Speaking of which, how's the contribution system faring lately? The bet had been a calculated ploy, a way to test the waters. True to his nature, Byakuya hadn't strayed from his purpose in seeking out Yahiko. He needed a clear picture of Akatsuki's current state to formulate their next move. Yahiko pursed his lips in thought before replying, "The system is currently functioning adequately." While there is a general sense of satisfaction, some people continue to grumble. It's easy to measure the contributions of those who go on the mission, but it's tricky to gauge the value of those who stay behind. Even though no one openly complains, there is an underlying feeling of discontent. Byakuya leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. People used to selflessly contribute without expecting anything in return. But now, with quantifiable measures, even the smallest unfairness becomes very noticeable. This is not about scarcity, but about perceived unfairness. Yahiko's brow furrowed in understanding. So, it's not about having less, but about feeling like some contribute less. Precisely. Previously, the spirit of camaraderie fostered acceptance. Now, with a system emphasizing individual gain, a sense of imbalance can easily arise. Yahiko acknowledged this with a thoughtful nod. Byakuya, your analysis of the contribution system's woes is spot on. What solutions do you propose? A sly smile played on Byakuya's lips. There are 2 options. Do you seek a temporary bandage or a permanent cure? Yahiko felt a tremor of unease snake down his spine at Byakuya's cryptic words, but curiosity spurred him on. Explain both methods and I'll decide which works best. Byakuya's eyes gleamed with a predatory light. The most definitive solution is to simply dismantle Akatsuki. Without the organization, the question of allocation becomes moot. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in, before turning his gaze back to Yahiko's now tense form. Seeing the stunned silence he elicited, Byakuya continued, outlining the second method. The alternative is to continuously refine the existing system based on feedback. We can strive to find a solution that resonates with the majority. Yahiko offered a hesitant nod. The second one sounds like a viable method. Byakuya, however, extinguished that spark with a casual shrug. I figured you'd lean towards refining the system. But the harsh reality is, option 1 might be more likely. Our financial situation is projected to take a nosedive soon. When that happens, distribution issues become a moot point. There simply won't be anything left to distribute. Yahiko blinked, his expression a mix of confusion and disbelief. Another financial crisis? But the financial reports I've seen indicate a healthy surplus. The cheerful outlook Byakuya had offered just moments ago seemed a cruel illusion now. Here they were, supposedly on the upswing, and yet another financial crisis would be coming for their necks. Byakuya cleared his throat, gesturing towards his glass. Yahiko reacted swiftly, refilling his drink. After taking a sip and composing himself, Byakuya continued. Recall that earlier point I made about an impending crisis? It's multifaceted, Yahiko. It's not just about our ninja force, but our financial well-being as well. Think about it. With Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village avoiding large-scale conflicts lately, who exactly is buying Conan's explosive tags? He leaned forward and raised his finger. And let's not forget, the inflated prices we're currently charging for those tags barely keep us afloat. Once the market forces those prices back down to normal, Akatsuki will face a critical decision. We will either have to stop recruiting or cut back on winning hearts and minds. Don't delude yourself, Yahiko. These days of relative comfort are temporary. We're destined for another period of hardship. Yahiko slumped back in his chair, a heavy silence descending upon them. Byakuya's words, harsh as they were, painted an undeniable picture of Akatsuki's precarious situation. Akatsuki's financial situation was a precarious tightrope walk, with only 2 meager sources of income, missions, which were sporadic bursts of revenue, and Conan's explosive tags. Mission income was practically negligible compared to the steady stream generated by tag sales. A drop in those inflated tag prices wouldn't be a gentle nudge, it would be a plummeting freefall into a financial crisis. The only seemingly viable solution, restarting the very wars they sought to abolish, went against their core principles. But halting recruitment meant stagnation, hindering their ability to expand and spread their message of peace. It was a vicious cycle with no apparent escape hatch. Byakuya monitored Yahiko's deepening worry with a flutter of concealed satisfaction. The world of shinobi might glorify raw power, but for those lacking a Mengekyo Sharingan or Six Paths prowess, it still operated under a similar set of rules as the world he came from. Wars, initially decided by cunning strategies and meticulous tactics, inevitably devolved into tests of endurance. The victor wasn't solely determined by the strength of its shinobi, but also by the financial backing of the nation behind them. This explained why Hidden Leaf Village, despite minimal gains from the Great Ninja Wars, always bounced back swiftly. The Land of Fire, Hidden Leaf Village's supporting pillar, was a powerhouse of wealth. Smaller villages outside the Big Five presented a stark contrast. Take the Land of Rain, for example. Even with a formidable leader like Hanzo, their lack of resources meant any temporary success was unsustainable. They'd inevitably regress, forced into isolationist policies. The reason Akatsuki, during Yahiko's era, hadn't encountered this dilemma was due to their small size. Once they expanded to the scale of a ninja village, even a smaller one with just a few hundred members, financial considerations became paramount. Otherwise, why else would Nagato and Conan, in later years, resort to taking bounty missions to fund their war preparations? By that point, Yahiko's ideals had long been corrupted. After a thoughtful silence that stretched taut between them, Yahiko met Byakuya's gaze. The strategist, anticipating this moment, held up two fingers, outlining a path forward. Two methods exist. The first is to manipulate events from the shadows, to sow discord and ignite conflicts. I'm certain you wouldn't entertain such a notion. A resolute glint flashed in Yahiko's eyes. Of course not. It is just against the very basis of my vision. Byakuya continued, a hint of a plan forming in his eyes. The second option is to utilize our current funds to invest in lucrative industries. We could develop groundbreaking new products and leverage these ventures to sustain the organization's future operations. We wouldn't be reliant on the sale of explosive tags for survival anymore. I suspect you'll find this option more suitable. Chapter 38, Outing. Yahiko's head dipped in a hesitant nod. Byakuya's understanding of him had grown considerably of late. He knew inciting wars from the shadows wasn't an option Yahiko would entertain. So, the strategist had proposed an alternative, acquiring industries to address Akatsuki's looming financial crisis. However, some doubt danced in Yahiko's eyes as he caught Byakuya's playfully glinting gaze. The suggestion felt off somehow. After careful deliberation, Yahiko concluded that Byakuya's words were ultimately empty. Profitable industries naturally generated income. Existing, established ones wouldn't require forceful acquisition by another organization. That would fall back into the very cycle they aimed to break. Byakuya, with a shrewd grin, seemed to anticipate Yahiko's line of thinking. Don't worry, boss. Forceful acquisition isn't on the table. I have a few well-considered methods in mind. Byakuya wasn't merely placating Yahiko, he genuinely possessed a repertoire of unconventional money-making strategies. One such plan involved civilianizing existing ninja technology, a prospect brimming with lucrative possibilities. The disparity between military and civilian technology in the ninja world was vast. While Hidden Leaf Village's labs toiled away on wood-style, KK Genkai cloning, rural farmers were reduced to cultivating land through sheer muscle power. Even during crucial planting and harvest seasons, the reliance on ninjas remained a stopgap measure. Perhaps this was a way for lower-level ninja to secure missions and income. Or, more likely, it was a deliberate strategy by nobles to restrict the ninjas' influence. Confining ninjas to the mercenary sector, barring them entry into other industries, indirectly maintained the dominance of the daimyos and nobility. But Byakuya? He saw no need to play by those established rules. Yahiko leaned back in his chair, a flicker of trust crossing his features. I'll leave this matter in your capable hands, Byakuya. While the intricacies of Byakuya's plan remained shrouded in mystery, Yahiko had an unshakable faith in the strategist's resourcefulness. After all, Byakuya had masterfully navigated Akatsuki through a financial crisis before, and Yahiko held no doubts about his ability to repeat the feat. Suddenly, a sharp glint entered Byakuya's eyes as he fixed Yahiko with a piercing gaze. Before we delve further, Yahiko, I have a question that demands your honest response. Imagine our ventures flourish, attracting the covetous eyes of other ninjas and nobles. How would you react? Would you endure in silence, relinquishing your hard-earned success, or would you stand your ground and retaliate? Yahiko's brow furrowed in contemplation. Byakuya's question transcended mere industries, it resonated with the very core of Akatsuki's existence. He understood the veiled threat. Akatsuki itself would eventually become a target for those seeking power and wealth. After a thoughtful pause, Yahiko spoke with unwavering resolve. Retaliate. He declared firmly. Should we be forced into such a corner, we won't hesitate to defend ourselves. Standing idly by is not an option. Byakuya offered a curt nod, a hint of satisfaction gleaming in his eyes. Indeed. It seems we share a certain commonality on this matter. Though he acknowledged the point of agreement, Byakuya quickly dismissed the notion of genuine camaraderie. Observing Yahiko's relentless pursuit of his ideals, Byakuya had witnessed a gradual erosion of the leader's naivety. The truth was far more sinister. Akatsuki's growth was on a collision course with Hidden Rain Village. Conflicts of interest were inevitable, and an explosive confrontation loomed on the horizon. Byakuya's plan, however, harbored a far grander ambition: Akatsuki's ultimate ascendancy as the dominant power in the Land of Rain, replacing Hidden Rain Village's rule entirely. For now, they were in the phase of accumulating strength, biding their time. When the moment arrived, Byakuya would orchestrate the takeover, regardless of Hidden Rain Village's stance. By that point, Yahiko's idealistic vision would be rendered irrelevant. Yahiko remained blissfully unaware of the churning thoughts within Byakuya. He felt a little insecure. Here he was, the leader of Akatsuki, yet he felt utterly incompetent in Byakuya's presence. Confined to the office, Yahiko spent his days buried under a mountain of paperwork, unable to tackle the organization's larger issues. Byakuya, however, held a different perspective. While Yahiko's unwavering idealism bordered on naivety, he possessed undeniable strengths. His compassionate nature and patient demeanor fostered a sense of camaraderie within Akatsuki's ranks. Unlike Byakuya himself, Yahiko possessed the time and temperament to handle the tedious minutiae, assigning tasks and offering solace to the villagers they sought to protect. Byakuya harbored no illusions about delegating leadership. Conan perhaps, but her potential wouldn't blossom for a few years yet. Nagato, with his meek personality, was entirely out of the question. The rest lacked the necessary skills and experience. After all, most ninjas were glorified mercenaries, devoid of formal education. While Yahiko, Nagato, and Conan weren't ideal choices, their tutelage under the legendary Jiraiya set them apart from the others. More importantly, placing them at the helm made them convenient targets, a liability in Byakuya's scheme of covert wealth accumulation. After a half-hour conversation, Byakuya rose to leave Akatsuki's headquarters. As he departed, Yahiko surprised him with a new task, a joint mission with Conan the following day. They were to sell explosive tags and scout for potential investment opportunities. Byakuya, to his amusement, didn't decline. It had been a while since he'd ventured out, and the thought of remaining perpetually confined to the base was unappealing. He wouldn't become another Kaguya Otsutsuki, a being with formidable power on paper, but lacking the practical experience to translate it into victory. The next morning, after warming up, Byakuya arrived at Conan's doorstep. After a few impatient rings, the door creaked open, revealing a bleary-eyed Conan. "Byakuya?" she mumbled, her voice thick with sleep. "What brings you by so early?" Byakuya's eyes narrowed as he noticed the dark circles marring Conan's youthful face. "Late nights again, Conan-senpai? Didn't we discuss the law of supply and demand? Your health isn't something to gamble with." "Not exactly late nights. I pulled an all-nighter, that's all." Conan mumbled a protest. Blinking rapidly, she added, "I've also cut back on explosive tag production recently. We have a surplus now, so I've implemented a system where everyone can exchange tags at the warehouse. It'll ensure everyone has enough for missions and stay safe." Byakuya sighed. Overtime was practically ingrained in Akatsuki's culture. Back then, they hadn't even received salaries, relying solely on unwavering dedication. Conan's distribution system essentially meant everyone was working for free, albeit indirectly promoting the organization's growth. But at what cost? He couldn't shake off the worry that Conan might push herself to the breaking point. Just then, Conan seemed to remember the reason for his visit. "Byakuya, did Yahiko assign us another mission together? Is that why you're here?" "Similar to last time. Except this time, we have an additional task, scouting investment opportunities. Would you mind showing me the map of the Land of Rain's towns?" Conan retrieved the map from her room and handed it to him. As Byakuya unfolded it, his gaze fell upon a marked location, the black market. A frown creased his brow. "Is this map outdated? Wasn't the black market destroyed? Why is there another one in the same spot?" Conan shrugged with helplessness in her eyes. "It seems they've rebuilt the black market in the same location." Byakuya felt a surge of frustration. He knew the black market's existence likely stemmed from corrupt local nobles. But for it to rise from the ashes just 2 months later, in the exact same location, that was concerning. However, considering the Land of Rain's size, suitable alternatives were probably scarce. Having marked everything on the map, Byakuya returned it to Conan. Together, they stepped out of the Akatsuki base, ready for their joint mission. Chapter 39, Hanzo's henchmen arriving at the black market in the Land of Rain. Conan and Byakuya couldn't help but be surprised by the unusually smooth journey. They had expected to encounter some trouble, perhaps rogue ninjas or bandits, but instead, they witnessed an unexpected sense of public security in the area. Byakuya, in particular, had anticipated the opportunity for combat practice or to seek out potential members for their organization among the supposed threats along the way. However, to their surprise, the journey was devoid of any such encounters. Not even a single bandit or rogue ninja crossed their path. Reflecting on this unexpected turn of events, Byakuya considered the recent influence of the Akatsuki in the Land of Rain, and how their efforts to take over and protect the villages had possibly contributed to the surprisingly peaceful state of the region. He mused over the rarity of encountering skilled rogue ninjas, realizing that those who would choose to wander freely were likely individuals who had somehow offended the village's authorities. After arriving at a familiar town, Conan turned to Byakuya before asking, "The black market is just ahead. Are we working together this time or completing our tasks separately?" Byakuya glanced at Conan and replied, "Let's split up. I'm having a gut feeling this place isn't safe enough." Conan nodded, showing a look of understanding as expected. After their previous mission together, she knew that Byakuya didn't like dealing with too many people and preferred operating in the shadows. This preference was different from that of most other members of their organization. After confirming that they would act separately, Byakuya didn't leave immediately. Instead, he followed Conan, deploying his paper clones to gather intelligence related to her. Once Conan entered the black market, she attracted the attention of many people, including black market merchants, rogue ninjas, and the hidden figures behind the Land of Rain's black market. Byakuya could sense these gazes thanks to the mind's eye of the Kagura ability he had obtained from Nagato. The mind's eye of the Kagura is an exceptionally powerful sensory ninjutsu, capable of discerning others' intentions and moral alignment. In this respect, its abilities can be even more terrifying than the Byakugan and Sharingan. Byakuya continued to follow Conan. After turning into an alley in the black market, Conan found a black market merchant. Upon seeing Conan, the merchant immediately put on a fawning smile and approached her. Conan had been a regular customer in recent months, each time bringing a large number of explosive tags to sell, allowing the merchant to earn a significant profit as an intermediary. Conan was not deceived by the merchant's ingratiating smile. She took out a scroll containing the explosive tags and began negotiating the price. One side argued that the demand for explosive tags had decreased due to the recent lull in warfare, and thus, the price would drop. The other side insisted that the production of explosive tags was limited, and if the price did not meet expectations, she would rather not sell them. Byakuya had little interest in the bargaining process, he was more concerned with finding out who controlled this black market. As Byakuya looked around, he noticed the bodyguards surrounding the merchant, which caught his attention. These individuals had chakra levels far higher than those of ordinary people, reaching Chunin levels. The merchant negotiating with Conan was even more exceptional, possessing Jonin-level chakra. However, the merchant seemed to be dealing with some health issues and appeared very weak. After some negotiation, Conan left the alley with a box of money. Byakuya chose not to follow her, but instead, he hid in a corner to observe the black market merchant. In addition to helping Conan sell the explosive tags, Byakuya was also looking for potential business partners. Collaborating with an existing merchant would be much simpler than starting from scratch. This black market merchant seemed to be a promising candidate. As Conan finished her business at the black market and started to make her way out, a group of sly ninjas approached the merchant and menacingly gestured across their throats with their fingers. "Lord Shigure, the blue-haired Kunoichi has returned to peddle her explosive tags. Shall we apprehend her? I've heard rumors that she is affiliated with the notorious Akatsuki. They've been quietly expanding their influence, but their leader has never bowed down to Lord Hanzo. Perhaps it's time to bring her before Lord Hanzo." After listening to his subordinate's report, the black market merchant named Shigure shook his head. "The most important thing in the black market is the rules. We cannot break them. Besides, do you think a ninja daring enough to sell explosive tags would be an ordinary person? She must have the backing of one of the 5 great shinobi villages. We just need to earn a bit of profit, there's no need to offend one of the great villages. I will report this information to Lord Hanzo and let him decide." "Yes, Lord Shigure." The rain ninjas responded respectfully. "You can all leave now. Don't disturb my rest." Waving his hand to dismiss his subordinates, Shigure turned around, revealing a sullen expression. He seemed quite impatient with his underlings. Byakuya overheard the conversation between the rain ninjas and noticed Shigure's dark expression. Shigure, the black market merchant, was actually a Jonin from Hidden Rain Village. This revelation didn't surprise Byakuya as he suspected that the black market within the Land of Rain was connected to the nation's upper echelons. What surprised him was that the black market was directly controlled by Hidden Rain Village and its merchants were ninjas. This revelation was concerning because it meant that Conan's activities, such as selling explosive tags and procuring supplies, had always been under Hidden Rain Village's watchful eye. The thought that Hanzo might have been monitoring the Akatsuki all along wasn't comforting. The fact that Hanzo hadn't taken action against the Akatsuki yet might simply be because the organization was too weak, and Yahiko's ideals were too pacifist. An organization that consistently sought peaceful resolutions through dialogue appeared to pose no real threat. The Akatsuki's presence held the potential to bolster security outside Hidden Rain Village's borders, and Hanzo may have welcomed the prospect of the Akatsuki's growth, possibly even entertaining thoughts of a future alliance with Hidden Rain Village. However, these possibilities were contingent on the absence of external interference. It was improbable for the Land of Rain, the infamous battleground of the Third Shinobi World War, to remain undisturbed. The destabilization of the Land of Rain played to the advantage of the three major nations bordering it. Thus, while the Akatsuki projected an image of non-aggression, they could not afford to be entirely powerless. After meticulously noting down Shigure's name and chakra pattern, Byakuya silently departed from the black market, making his way to the designated rendezvous point with Conan. Upon seeing Byakuya, Conan curiously asked, "Byakuya, how's your investment plan going?" Byakuya decided to tease Conan a bit as he smirked. "I've got some leads on the investment plan, but first, can you guess the identity of the black market merchant you were dealing with?" "You followed me? But what does the merchant's identity have to do with us?" Conan retorted. Byakuya explained with a hint of exasperation. "The black market merchant's name is Shigure, and he's a jonin from Hidden Rain Village. This means your activities of selling explosive tags and procuring supplies have been under Hanzo of the Salamander's watch. Isn't that obvious? Our activities couldn't possibly escape Hanzo's notice." Conan replied nonchalantly. Conan was not surprised. Within the Akatsuki, almost everyone believed that Hanzo of the Salamander wouldn't be a threat to their organization. If Byakuya only knew of Hanzo's reputation and not the future plot, he would have thought the same. Unfortunately, Hanzo, the once great hero, ultimately became a villain, killing the new hero and giving rise to an even more terrifying demon. Confronted with Conan's steadfast belief, Byakuya chose to present an alternative perspective. Hanzo may not directly oppose the organization, but who's to say there aren't individuals influencing him from behind the scenes? What if they convince him to turn against us? Conan nodded in agreement, her expression turning serious as she looked at Byakuya. "You're right, Byakuya. We must prevent that from happening. What do you plan to do, and do you need my help? Should I start procuring supplies from a different place?" Conan's sudden change in attitude caught Byakuya off guard, but he quickly responded. "The organization is already exposed to Hanzo. It's too late to stay hidden. Continue as you have been, leave the rest to Yahiko and me." Hearing this, Conan nodded slightly. "I trust you, Byakuya." Conan's trust warmed Byakuya's heart, but as he calmed down, he realized something was off. Did Conan think he might be the one sowing discord within the Akatsuki? Chapter 40, The Power of Akatsuki. Despite the fact that Conan might have some misunderstandings about him, Byakuya couldn't be bothered to explain any further. Once a stereotype is formed, any explanation will only make things worse. He was merely preparing based on his knowledge of future events, but to Conan and Yahiko, it seemed like he had a persecution complex. However, they also knew that everything he did was for the sake of the Akatsuki organization, and they were just teasing him. In the following week, Conan was busy procuring various supplies and started investing in industries that would be promising in times of peace. Following Byakuya's suggestion, she also began to establish peripheral organizations. Byakuya, on the other hand, stayed active near the black market, observing the black market merchant Shigure and gathering relevant intelligence. Through the black market and various Akatsuki members, Byakuya collected a lot of useful information. The information revealed that Shigure was a jonin from Hidden Rain Village. He had participated in the last Shinobi World War under Hanzo's leadership, earning numerous merits. However, for some reason, not only was he not given any important roles, but he was also relegated to guarding the black market, thus exiting the core circle. Moreover, Shigure had severe internal injuries, which seemed to prevent him from exerting his full jonin strength. After facing these setbacks, Shigure found it impossible not to resent Hidden Rain Village. In addition, Byakuya observed that Shigure appeared dissatisfied with Hanzo the Salamander. This dissatisfaction seemed to stem from Hanzo's recent years of inaction. Most importantly, Shigure had a considerably favorable impression of the Akatsuki organization, as he had often assisted Conan. Armed with this information, Byakuya decided to meet Shigure. If he could persuade Shigure to cooperate with the Akatsuki, they could provide false information to Hanzo the Salamander at crucial moments, giving the Akatsuki more time to develop. That very night, Byakuya intercepted Shigure in a small alley without wasting any time. Seeing the unidentified ninja ahead, Shigeru reached for his kunai and said wearily, "You have 3 seconds to state your identity and purpose, or I'll attack." Byakuya slowly stepped out of the shadows, revealing his slender figure and delicate face. Seeing that the intruder was just a boy, Shigeru sighed in relief. After all, he was just a boy, how strong could he be even if he was a ninja? However, he did not let his guard down, as he was no longer at his peak strength. Byakuya raised his hand, and golden chain shot out from his sleeve, subduing Shigeru with a speed imperceptible to the naked eye. Shigeru struggled, waving his limbs, but found himself unable to break free. "Who are you?" Shigeru's eyes were filled with shock. Despite being significantly weakened by an injury sustained years ago, he still maintained the skills of an elite jonin. However, he was swiftly defeated by the young boy standing before him. At his age, possessing such power was even more terrifying than Hidden Leaf Village's prodigy Kakashi. He wondered what kind of monster had appeared before him. Not only was his body under control, but his chakra flow was also restricted. In his shock, Shigeru began to attempt to persuade Byakuya. "Who exactly are you?" "Look, I am just a small-time merchant. Please don't make things difficult for a small-time merchant like me." Byakuya responded with an expressionless face. "A small-time merchant? A true small merchant wouldn't carry chakra-infused daggers, nor would they have the strength of an elite jonin." Upon seeing Byakuya emerge and initiate conversation, Shigeru breathed a sigh of relief, realizing that the boy didn't intend to harm him. Shigeru had kept his identity as a ninja hidden for years. How did this boy know he was a ninja and even estimate his strength? In this situation, there were only 2 possibilities: either the boy knew about his past, or the boy's strength far surpassed his own and he possessed some special sensing ability. Both of these possibilities posed significant threats to him. Taking a deep breath, Shigeru cautiously decided to make a talk. "Why are you here? Is it for money, or did an enemy send you to kill me?" Byakuya did not immediately respond. Instead, he walked over to Shigeru, pried open his mouth, and fed him a pill. Feeling the pill dissolve in his mouth, Shigeru's expression changed. Was the boy trying to control him with poison? But soon, he realized something was amiss. Not only did the pill not have any negative effects on his body, but it also began to heal his internal injuries. Byakuya had not poisoned him but had given him a miraculous pill. However, since they didn't know each other, Byakuya must have some ulterior motive. So, even though he had received a favor from Byakuya, Shigeru's expression became even more serious. Seeing that the atmosphere was sufficiently tense, Byakuya began to release the adamantine sealing chains while speaking. "I am here to invite you to join our organization. If you refuse, I'll have to make you forget this encounter." Shigeru's face changed as he quickly recalled the events of the past few months and the various organizations active within the Land of Rain. Thinking of a particular name, his expression softened somewhat, and he tentatively raised a brow. "What's the name of your organization?" Byakuya saw no need to hide the truth and straightforwardly replied, "Akatsuki." To Byakuya's surprise, Shigeru responded without any hesitation, "All right, I'll join Akatsuki." Hearing this, Byakuya was taken aback. This jonin from Hidden Rain Village agreed to join Akatsuki so easily. He had expected to have to lay out the benefits and perhaps use some coercion. However, could this be a delaying tactic from Shigeru? Byakuya was suspicious, but at that moment, a clear electronic voice echoed in his mind, "Special Jonin Shigeru has joined Akatsuki. You have acquired the water style, water dragon bullet technique." The system notification turned Byakuya's suspicion into confusion. He then asked Shigeru, "Aren't you agreeing too quickly? You are, after all, a ninja of Hidden Rain Village." Shigeru raised his head and sighed. "I am a ninja of the Land of Rain. If your organization is indeed the Akatsuki I've heard about, I have no reason to refuse. The Akatsuki I've heard of is an organization that helps villagers defend against bandits. As a ninja of the Land of Rain, what's so strange about choosing to join such an organization? Moreover, I've already taken your pill, so I don't have much choice. All I can do is hope that you truly are from Akatsuki. Are you still worried about the pill I gave you?" Byakuya saw through Shigeru's thoughts at a glance, understanding that Shigeru only boasted about the Akatsuki organization in front of him because his life was in Byakuya's hands. It was surprising to Byakuya that the Akatsuki organization could receive such high praise from a jonin of Hidden Rain Village. It's no wonder that the original Yahiko could rise to power in just a few years, posing a threat even to Henzo the Salamander. It's just a pity that the Akatsuki was too idealistic at that time, just too naive an organization that shouldn't exist in the ninja world. Honestly, if Byakuya were the leader of Hidden Rain Village and heard that Yahiko had such influence within the Land of Rain, he would attempt diplomacy the first time. If that failed, he would immediately eradicate the threat. Chapter 41, The spy, as Byakuya was deeply immersed in his thoughts, Shigeru, who sat beside him, experienced a growing sense of unease. Shigeru had already made a commitment to join the Akatsuki organization. However, he couldn't shake off the feeling of apprehension caused by Byakuya's prolonged silence. He started to wonder if his easy agreement had raised suspicion, leading Byakuya to contemplate silencing him to eliminate any potential threat. At that very moment, Byakuya, snapping out of his reverie, suddenly became aware of Shigeru standing beside him. He extended his hand. "Sorry, I got lost in thought for a moment. But nonetheless, welcome to the Akatsuki organization." After hearing this, Shigeru's mouth twitched slightly. He was at least a Jonin. Wasn't it risky for Byakuya to lose focus at such a moment, fearing that Shigeru might retract his agreement and launch a surprise attack? But considering the strength demonstrated by Byakuya, Shigeru suppressed the urge to criticize. Byakuya indeed had the power to overpower him, and the pill he had just given him was definitely not clean. It must have contained something else. After trying to calm his emotions, Shigeru began to contemplate the future. If Byakuya was indeed a high-ranking member of the Akatsuki organization, joining them might not be a bad idea. Over the past 6 months, he had gathered much information about the Akatsuki organization. Many of his disappointed colleagues had also joined the Akatsuki. He had also secretly protected the Akatsuki, though he still believed in Lord Hanzo. Even though Hanzo now stayed within Hidden Rain Village every day, allowing bandits to run rampant within the Land of Rain, Shigeru believed that one day Hanzo would rise again and lead the Land of Rain. At this moment, Shigeru realized that he didn't even know Byakuya's name, so he asked, "How should I address you, sir?" "Just call me Byakuya." "Byakuya?" Shigeru paused, realizing that he had heard that name from his former colleagues. It seemed that Byakuya was indeed a member of the Akatsuki organization, ranking just below Yahiko, Nagato, and Konan. However, Shigeru had assumed Byakuya was at least middle-aged, but he turned out to be just a youth. After pondering for a moment, Shigeru continued. "All right, Lord Byakuya, in recruiting me to join the Akatsuki organization, do you intend for me to leave Hidden Rain Village and join the Akatsuki, or do you want me to remain here in Hidden Rain Village?" To Shigeru, Byakuya's recruitment purposes boiled down to these two options, either to make him leave Hidden Rain Village or to enlist him as a spy. If Byakuya wanted him to leave Hidden Rain Village, he had no choice. However, if he was to act as a spy gathering information for the Akatsuki, he would need to consider it carefully. At this moment, Byakuya revealed Shigeru's job description. "After joining the Akatsuki organization, you will still be a ninja of Hidden Rain Village. You only need to follow orders from Hidden Rain Village as usual, and I won't interfere with you too much." Byakuya paused for a moment before continuing. "However, in addition to your duties for Hidden Rain Village, I have another task for you, which I hope you will complete with full dedication." Then, Byakuya took out a scroll from his pocket and tossed it to Shigeru. Taking the scroll, Shigeru realized that Byakuya wanted him to act as a spy within Hidden Rain Village. It seemed that the Akatsuki organization's goals were not as simple as they appeared, though their true intentions had not yet been revealed. As he unrolled the scroll and examined it carefully, Shigeru's expression changed instantly, and he regarded Byakuya with a strange look. Byakuya hadn't asked him to gather intelligence about Hidden Rain Village. Instead, he wanted Shigeru to manufacture and sell goods according to the designs on the scroll, with profits split 70-30. As a black market merchant, Shigeru's intuition told him that they would be extremely profitable once these goods were produced. But why expose the shadow of the Akatsuki organization and force him to join if they wanted to invest and do business together? Wouldn't it be better for everyone to make money together without revealing their affiliation to the Akatsuki? After contemplating momentarily, Shigeru expressed his confusion. "Lord Byakuya, do you really want me to do this? Don't you need me to gather intelligence from the village?" Byakuya glanced at Shigeru and sighed. "Why would I need intelligence from the village? The Akatsuki and Hidden Rain Village are not enemies. I just need your help from the shadows. Speculatively, it's bribery and kinda threat to you, the Jonin of Hidden Rain Village. If we don't have some influential figures to protect the business, what will happen if our industry gets targeted?" Influential figures? Shigeru suddenly remembered the miraculous pill he had taken earlier. He had indeed received a favor, and now he had a profitable project in his hands. There wasn't anything excessive from the other party. In terms of the outcome, it was undoubtedly beneficial for him, but the process made him feel uncomfortable as if he were being coerced. But at this point, Byakuya wasn't finished. "However, if Hanzo-sama really takes action against the Akatsuki, remember to inform us. After all, you are now a member of the Akatsuki organization." With that, Byakuya disappeared from the alley, leaving behind a partially opened box filled with cash. Glancing at the spot where Byakuya disappeared, Shigeru then looked at the cash on the ground and the design scroll in his hand. He seemed to have inexplicably become a member of the Akatsuki organization. And he only knew the name Byakuya, nothing else. He only had two choices: follow Byakuya's instructions and report the matter to Hanzo-sama, or report Byakuya as an enemy spy. But Byakuya turned out to be a member of the Akatsuki organization and hadn't asked Shigeru to gather intelligence from the village. Instead, he had offered Shigeru benefits he couldn't refuse. Shigeru was unsure whether reporting to Hanzo-sama would even make a difference or if it would lead to suspicion on himself. He had to decide whether to pledge allegiance to Hanzo, risking being killed, or to quietly work for Byakuya, earning money while not compromising the interests of the village, but by turning a blind eye to certain matters. After pondering, Shigeru returned to his room and began to write the mission report. In this report, he deliberately omitted tonight's meeting with Byakuya and lowered the quantities of the supplies purchased by the Akatsuki organization. From the shadowy corner, Byakuya observed Shigeru's behavior and took a deep breath in satisfaction. So far, Shigeru's actions had been within his expectations. Although there had been some unexpected occurrences, everything had proceeded perfectly according to plan. To implant this spy, Byakuya first used force to threaten Shigeru into joining the Akatsuki organization. Then, he assigned Shigeru simple tasks with sweet rewards that did not harm the interests of Hidden Rain Village, gradually leading him into a trap. As time passed, Shigeru's interests would become intertwined with those of the Akatsuki organization, making him a thorough member of it. Of course, the most crucial aspect was that Byakuya had placed a seal within Shigeru's body. Even if Shigeru betrayed the Akatsuki organization, Byakuya could kill him instantly. However, these were just precautions. Perhaps, given Yahiko's ideology and immense benefits, Byakuya wouldn't even need to resort to the seal. Shigeru might willingly work for the Akatsuki organization. Chapter 42, Hanzo of the Salamander Hidden Rain Village. Under the guard's repeated urging, Hanzo reluctantly entered the office and frowned at the mountain of reports piled on the desk. He began to deal with them one by one while the guards beside him watched, filled with worry. They were concerned about their leader, Hanzo, and also worried about the future of the Land of Rain. Hanzo used to be enthusiastic about his work, caring for his subordinates, and dedicated to the rise of the Land of Rain. Under his leadership, they repelled invaders from the Land of Wind, drove the Sand Ninja out of the Land of Rain, and made Hidden Rain Village the most famous ninja village outside the 5 great ninja villages. However, at some point, Hanzo began to change. Not only did he lose his ambition to expand the borders, but he also became lazy in handling domestic affairs. His long-term laziness directly led to many ninjas leaving Hidden Rain Village, and bandits started running rampant in the area. As guards who had come all the way with him, they could also guess the reason for Hanzo's fall. It seems that because the Land of Rain is located in the midst of the 4 great wars, Hidden Rain Village simply cannot expand outward. Unable to see hope of becoming a great nation, Hanzo simply gave up his responsibilities, and his vision became increasingly narrow. From hoping for the rise of the Land of Rain, to only focusing on the area around a Hidden Rain Village tower. If it weren't for these people's reminders, Hanzo probably wouldn't even bother with official duties, spending all day in his room drinking tea and alcohol, enjoying life. They hoped in their hearts that Lord Hanzo could regain his original intentions and lead them to actively start a war. Hanzo also noticed the guard's strange looks, but he didn't say much. These people simply didn't understand the plight of the Land of Rain. The problems within the Land of Rain cannot be solved simply by striving. In the last Great Ninja War, Hidden Rain Village did not emerge victorious and will not be victorious in future Great Ninja Wars. Rather than risking involvement in the Great Ninja Wars, declaring isolation from the outside world is better. Given the barrenness of the Land of Rain, as long as there is enough fighting strength, there's no need to worry about other countries attacking the Land of Rain. As for whether the ordinary people within the borders are living well, that's none of his concern. The reputation he built up in the first half of his life is enough to enjoy in the second half. There's no need to waste time and energy on meaningless work. However, despite his laziness towards his duties, he has always maintained contact with the major ninja villages and has been involved in numerous secret conspiracies. When he began handling official affairs, Hanzo quickly took note of a mission report from Shigeru, a leader of the black market. Shigeru is responsible for tracking the movements of wandering ninjas within the Land of Rain through the movement of the black market. In Shigeru's report, Hanzo quickly noticed the phrase Akatsuki organization. Akatsuki means the first light of dawn. This self-proclaimed Akatsuki organization piqued Hanzo's interest even more, and he seemed to have heard of this organization somewhere before, feeling somewhat familiar. Suppressing his doubts, Hanzo turned to one of his subordinates before pointing at the report. Does anyone here know about the Akatsuki? Upon hearing Hanzo's question, the guard beside him hurriedly came forward. Lord Hanzo, the Akatsuki has been very active recently within the Land of Rain. It's said to be a recently established peace organization. They seem to be dedicated to promoting mutual understanding among people and have been helping villagers combat bandits and wandering ninjas. Helping to combat bandits? Hanzo frowned. So, they're a ninja organization. Tell me more about the specifics of this organization. Yes. The guard nodded, then proceeded to provide the gathered intelligence. Upon learning that the founder of the Akatsuki organization was a student of Jiraiya, Hanzo's demeanor shifted, his countenance growing more grave. While the Akatsuki organization's activities of amassing ninjas and safeguarding ordinary citizens held little significance for him, as it contributed to upholding security within the Land of Rain, the fact that it was established by one of Jiraiya's disciples heightened his vigilance. Hanzo, a subordinate of the fallen Jiraiya, had covertly taken in 3 orphans following his defeat, and these 3 orphans had somehow formed a peace organization. Hanzo contemplated whether Jiraiya himself was the mastermind behind this peace organization and whether it posed a threat to his rule. However, he then fleetingly shook his head. How could a newly formed organization possibly threaten his rule? Even Jiraiya, along with Orochimaru and Tsunade, wouldn't be his match. Of all the things in the ninja world that made him wary, only those few old guys his age did. Moreover, he maintained good cooperation and relations with the leadership of Hidden Leaf Village. They even worked together before, implementing a conspiracy that led to the third Raikage's death at the hands of Hidden Stone's village. With this kind of relationship, Hidden Leaf Village wouldn't dare to make a move against Hidden Rain Village. Moreover, if the Akatsuki organization were truly a spy organization, their actions wouldn't be so conspicuous. Continuing to listen to his subordinates' reports about the Akatsuki organization, Hanzo became even more convinced that they posed no threat. Their actions seemed more like his own in his younger days, full of vigor and hope for the future. But how long could such hope last? This young man named Yahiko would eventually be defeated by reality, just like he himself chose to submit to reality. At that time, Yahiko might voluntarily submit to him and become an elite ninja under his command. Instead of worrying about these matters, he thought about the conflict between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stone's village, which was the biggest threat to Hidden Rain Village. With this in mind, Hanzo opened another intelligence file detailing the process of the Battle of the Kanabi Bridge and information about Minato Namikaze. The new youngster was known as Golden Flash as he used Flying Thunder God technique, giving no time to the opponent before they would meet their end. The information related to Minato stimulated Hanzo of the Salamander. He wondered if he was hearing this news correctly or if he was just too old. After all, his moving technique could consecutively kill several elite ninjas in a short period. This ninja named Minato Namikaze might become his formidable opponent in the future. Compared to Minato Namikaze, Yahiko was nothing. They weren't even on the same level. Hidden Leaf Village was truly deserving of its reputation. After producing strong individuals like the Sannin and Sakamo Hatake, it gave rise to another exceptionally skilled ninja in less than 10 years. Meanwhile, within Hidden Rain Village, there weren't even a few decent elite ninja, let alone a successor being chosen. If something were to happen to him, there would be no successor for Hidden Rain Village. Perhaps even Hidden Leaf Village, with whom relations were currently good, would turn its attention to Hidden Rain Village. Why was the Land of Rain so weak? Why couldn't he groom a qualified successor? What should be done with Hidden Rain Village after his death? With these thoughts, Hanzo suddenly felt weary. He sighed lightly and left the office, heading towards his room. He needed to rest properly before continuing with his duties. Seeing this scene, the guard's expressions dimmed noticeably. It had only been less than 2 hours of work, and Lord Hanzo was already off to indulge in pleasure again. Chapter 43, Denzo's focus on Byakuya compared to the lazy and indolent Hanzo. Denzo, who was active in the Hidden Grass Village area, was far more diligent and conscientious. The reason was simple. Ever since Minato Namikaze had single-handedly reversed the disadvantage on the battlefield and secured victory at the Battle of Kanabi Bridge, this young man in his early 20s had emerged as the leading figure of the younger generation in Hidden Leaf Village. His reputation and status had subtly surpassed those of other Jounin, reaching a level on par with the legendary Sannin. This development left Denzo, whose reputation had never quite matched that of the Sannin and who had always operated in the shadows, with an acute sense of urgency. If Minato Namikaze were to participate in the election and secure Jiraiya's support to become the 4th Hokage, then the already aging Denzo knew he wouldn't survive until the time of the 5th Hokage election. Thus, after the Battle of Kanabi Bridge ended and the conflict between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stone's village gradually subsided, Denzo and the Root organization were constantly active at the borders of various countries. They aimed to see if they could escalate the war, thereby allowing Hidden Leaf Village to gain greater benefits while trying to diminish the significance of the Battle of Kanabi Bridge. Unfortunately for Denzo, these actions by him and the Root organization had not yielded much success. Neither Hidden Stones village nor the surrounding shinobi villages had any intention of expanding the war. Maintaining the front lines was merely a means of seeking a suitable opportunity for peace talks. However, the past few months were not without any gains. At the very least, an Uchiha under Minato no Mikage's command had died. That Uchiha, named Obito, killed in Hidden Stones village Jounin before dying, making the greatest contribution to the village. After all, if Obito had grown up to become a Jounin under Minato's mentorship, he might have entered the village's core circle in the future, something Denzo could not tolerate. The second Hokage, Tobirama Senju, once said that only a dead Uchiha was a good Uchiha. As Tobirama's most dedicated student, Denzo adhered strictly to his teacher's teachings, always committed to suppressing the Uchiha. He believed that their narrow and sensitive nature would always threaten the Hokage office if left unchecked. The only regret was that they had not found Obito's body, otherwise, they could have recovered a Sharingan, allowing Obito to continue contributing to the village in a different form. The thought of an unchecked Uchiha with awakened Sharingan slipping through his fingers irked Denzo deeply. As he reflected on these matters, Denzo continued to ponder ways to reignite the conflict. He needed to create a situation that would overshadow the significance of the Battle of Kanabi Bridge and solidify his position. At that moment, Ryoma Barame walked into the dimly lit room where Denzo was seated. Ryoma, holding a scroll in his hands, approached the desk with a respectful bow. "Lord Denzo, this is the information you asked me to collect about the Land of Rain." Denzo glanced up at his right-hand man, then picked up the intelligence scroll. As he casually flipped through it, he noticed several key pieces of information about the Akatsuki. His eyes narrowed with interest as he read that the Akatsuki had emerged within the borders of the Land of Rain and did not obey the orders of Hidden Rain Village. Denzo pondered deeply, his mind racing through possibilities. Although Denzo had a decent private relationship with Hanzo and had been secretly cooperating with him, he didn't mind using the Akatsuki to create some trouble for Hanzo. If this could cause internal strife within the Land of Rain, all the better. After all, if the Land of Rain fell into chaos, neighboring countries like the Land of Grass and the Land of Fields wouldn't remain stable either. And if he could further direct the internal conflict towards Hidden Stones village, it would be even better. At the very least, Hidden Leaf village wouldn't have to worry about pressure from the north for several years. Denzo had already thought of several ways to use the Akatsuki organization to create chaos. Such rogue ninja organizations ultimately aim to overthrow the current village leaders and become the new leaders themselves. As long as he sent someone to reveal their identity and offer enough benefits, he could persuade them. If they could actually overthrow Hanzo, it would be ideal. If not, he could simply inform Hanzo of part of the plan, earning Hanzo's gratitude. This way, he could weaken the Land of Rain without shedding a drop of blood and possibly even turn Hidden Rain Village into a vassal of Hidden Leaf Village. When he saw the names Yahiko, Konan, and Nagato, Denzo suddenly felt something was amiss and asked Ryoma. "Do you have information on Yahiko, Nagato, and Konan?" Ryoma quickly nodded and described the characteristics of the three. Denzo visualized their images in his mind and soon thought of Jiraiya, who had spent 3 years in the Land of Rain. These people could very well be Jiraiya's disciples. Thinking of this gave Denzo quite a headache. Why did it have to be related to Jiraiya? Among Hiru's and Sarutobi's 3 disciples, Tsunade was the granddaughter of the first Hokage but had unfortunately picked up the bad habit of gambling. Orochimaru, despite his temperament,